We go. And get ready because the planes are back in full effect. So is what it is.
Sorry.
Is what it is.
We got mowing over here. We got flights over there.
Planes, trains, and riding lawnmowers.
Yep.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of True Crime and Cocktails, Famous Fatalities Edition. As always, I am your host, Lauren Ash. And as always, I am joined by my co-hostess with the most S, Christy Oxborrow. How you feeling?
I'm good. I'm good. One of my children has a birthday coming up, and his birthday party got canceled last year because of COVID. And so I, as a mother, feel incredibly guilty about that. Did I do a big thing on his birthday anyway to try and make it special? Sure. But this year we're going all out. So I'm like, well, I let him pick the birthday party plates and all that kind of stuff that he wanted. It's not available in town. So I'm like, it's cool. I'll just order these online. The store is a 45-minute drive away, but doesn't ship to my postal code. Okay, that's fine. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to drive there to get these and just, that's fine. That's fine. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to really go alone. So I'm like, maybe I can convince my husband to go with me just for the drive, for the company.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, he would hate that. I'm like, unless one of our favorite things in the world is Tony Roma's.
Of course.
So I'm like, all I have to do is go, you want to like take a little day date? Like I said, I have to do this. And then while we're there, we go pick that stuff up, and then just a little chicken shrimp, a little onion loaf, a little like, we'll love this. And he's like, I'm in, sold, done. I also didn't tell him I added in another store, but I was like, I'll tell him on the drive.
He'd find out later.
Yeah, it was close. So we get there and we're like, here we go. And we're like, you know what? Let's eat first, because we're really excited. We haven't had Tony Roma's in probably a good year and a half, probably pre-pandemic, easily. So we're like, here we go. We're in this. And we're driving by and we're like, oh shit, there's no cars in the parking lot. So we're like, oh, they've probably still got weird COVID hours. We didn't think to look it up. Okay, well, we'll go see what the sign says. The sign said for lease. The building is empty. No. They're gone. They did not survive the pandemic.
Right.
So we're like, oh, that was something to maybe look up before you made the drive, but we just never thought it was going to happen. So then my husband Googled. He was like, okay, cool. Let's just see. Is there anywhere? No, they are gone from the province of Saskatchewan. There are no more Tony Roma's in our province. So we ended up having to go somewhere else. It was fine. But when you have something in mind, even if you get the greatest meal you've ever had, you're still chasing that high. So
you're chasing that dragon.
Yeah. So I was sad about it. And then when we got home, one of our neighbors kind of accosted my husband into talking, but they didn't see me yet because I was still in the garage. So I threw my husband under the bus and left him and took off to the house and apologized when he got back in and just said, I didn't have it in me. I apologized to our neighbor. He's a very sweet gentleman, but
you got to save yourself sometimes, though.
I just wasn't in the mood. If I was full of kick and shrimp, I could have talked to that guy forever, but I wasn't. And so I wasn't ready.
I wonder if the Tony Roma's in LA is still here or not, because there was one at the City Walk, touristy area.
Sure.
And I'm wondering, is it still there or is it gone? I think it might be gone.
It was a shock to the system. I mean, I used to love, they had Swiss Chalet for a while and I loved it. And then it was gone and now suddenly it's back. So maybe that is hopeful that someday Tony Roma's will return, but it's painful. It was a really harsh lesson that I had to learn.
According to this,
oh boy,
the one in LA is also closed. And then according also to the internet, USA Today is the source, feels reputable, says in 2005, the restaurant's parent company, Roma Corp, filed for bankruptcy. So I think it's slowly been getting phased out.
Wow. Oh, yeah. That's even worse.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm learning I should have gone more often.
Well, listen, the next time you're down here, what I know that we're doing is we're going to just get in the damn car and we're going to drive till we find one. We're going to drive till we find one of the existing Tony Romas.
And while we're in the car, here's a deep cut for you. We'll try and find you some black cherry Fresca.
God damn it. Yes. Yes. When's that coming back? I want to remind you, we were told there was an aluminum shortage because of the pandemic. And is that still going on almost a year later? I can't believe that that's true.
It's tough to say. There's a specific, and I'm going to say it, pop, that we still cannot get in our local grocery store that we would like to, because we used to get it all the time. We have not been able to get it since COVID hit.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I need to give the pop companies some more credit and say, you know, I know you're doing the best you can and we appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
I guess maybe I need to be a better, more grateful consumer. I'm just saying I really like that product, and it's crazy to me that I haven't been able to enjoy it in so long.
Yes. And for the love of God, that Mountain Dew, I don't remember what it's called.
Code Red?
No, it's some tropical thing. It doesn't matter. The point is, whatever that Mountain Dew tropical one is, bring it back. He likes it.
That was not where I saw this going, but I like that that's where it ended. Wow.
I can't remember what it is. It'll come to me later. I hear my husband now. I feel from another room, he's probably listening to this episode, screaming the name. Like when we did that, it could have been a last call we did on Patreon, but we did something, and we were talking about a video game, and we were like, the game
Animal Crossing,
doing this thing, and we could not think of the name Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing, I see everywhere, and I'm like, I get it. We didn't.
We'll never forget.
Yeah, we'll never forget now. But in the moment, with a ring light staring your face down, you don't know what's what.
You don't. You really don't. Speaking of not knowing what's what, so I got a story for you that I think you're not going to love, but I have to tell it because it is a wild ride.
I can't
Saturday,
wait.
I had a list of errands to do, and I thought to myself, most of these are done drive-through style. So my dog Fox had an appointment at the vet, and the vet's office is very close to where I get oil changes at a drive-through situation. And then I needed
such a great adult.
Well, wait for it. And then I also needed to pick up my own medications, which you can get through a drive-through. So as I was leaving the house, my other dog, Peaches, who is very codependent with me, she was really like, she wanted to come. She was really like not wanting me to go. So I was like, get in the car. My sweet boyfriend was working. So the two dogs and me hit the road. Fine. So automatically, Fox is at the vet and he's getting some tests done, and it's already going to take a lot longer than we anticipated. So I was like, okay, my schedule's kind of gotten pushed, but that's fine. Long story short, it ended up 2 hours. 2 hours was the amount of time. Now they're still on COVID protocols. So you drop them off, they come pick them up out of the car. You're not in there is the point. So I drove around. I went to a McDonald's. I got a Diet Coke. I drove around some more. Peaches and I went for a walk. It was nice to have her company, to be honest. I'm glad I brought her. But anyway, finally, so he gets back in the car, and then I'm like, I'm really behind, but I'm just going to see, is there a lineup at the Valvoline to get this oil change? Because the oil change light is going off in my car because I barely drove during the pandemic, and I'm realizing like I'm really due. There's no line. There's like cars in the bays, but there's no line. So I drive in. Great. They're like, we're going to get you in and out real quick. Awesome. Now I am a target because if they upsell me on anything, I'm like, yep. Because I don't know. If they're like, your tires need to be rotated, I'm like, sounds like you're doing that then. If they're like, you need to get this fuel injector fluid, I'm like, put it in there. Like, you tell me anything because I don't know. So I'm like, I'll just take your advice. So, and this is the thing. So the gal is like, you're due to have your transmission fluid flushed. And I was like, okay. And it says on the screen, you're supposed to get it around 60,000 miles. My car has 55,000 miles on it. And I was like, maybe I'll get it next time I come. And I should have trusted my gut.
Oh no.
I should have trusted my gut. And she goes, well, it is really about time as well. And you've had the car X amount. And I said, you know what? Just do it. It's fine. Just do it. So I put the windows down to get some airflow going. And in order to do this, they have to take the battery out of my car.
Oh,
so
no.
the battery is off to the side. They're digging through. There's like 5 guys. And you always know it's bad when one of them's like, I can't find it. I don't know. Well, I don't see it. You always know, like, that's not what you want when you're getting your oil changed, right? Because it's like, this is not going as it should have. But I'm too blessed to be stressed. I'm like, we're just going to sit here and make the best of it. Yeah. And it's around that time that I hear the dulcet tones of a shirtless white man screaming, well, why is she on Tinder? Why doesn't she go on Tinder? And I turn, and it's what I would like to call a low rent Machine Gun Kelly type. And he is wearing low slung basketball shorts, shirtless, half a mullet, kind of like in Big, Tom Hanks's little friend.
Yes.
You know how he had that kind of little mullet? Like that was the haircut.
Okay.
That was the haircut exactly, but blonde. This guy was bleach blonde, not as much of a redhead as that kid in Big. Anyway, he starts throwing fists at 6 dudes. There's 6 male employees. There's 2 female employees. Everybody's gone, by the way. They're all trying to deal with this yelling guy. He's just throwing fists at all 6 of them. I'm like, I can't drive away if I want to because my battery's out of my car. So I can't even turn on my car. So then I go, well, what do I do? Do I call the police? And then I think, take a little bit from a Karen's book and get your phone out and start filming, like to help these people, right? Like document this. But they're behind like a barrier. I can't, and I'm trying to film and I can't. And then just as I'm like getting a good angle, he with great speed comes around and at me. So I fumble my phone because I'm like, I don't want him to see me because also the windows are down. I can't even roll my windows up because again, there's no battery in my car. I've got the 2 dogs. I feel vulnerable. I also feel like a mother protected.
Yes.
I'm like, if you're coming at me, guess what? The dogs aren't getting hurt. You're going to get your throat ripped out, buddy. He doesn't see my phone. Great. Anyway, then the male employees all kind of drift and leave the 2 gals to deal with this dude. And the one gal is trying to say to him, like, you need to leave. You've gotten violent. He gets even angrier. Eventually they're like, okay, we'll do your oil change really quick and we'll get you out of here. And then he calms down and they do it and he goes. So at this point I asked the lady who's been helping me and I said, hey, are you okay? And she's like, well, I'm glad it's over. And I was like, oh, and I said, I was like, very genuinely, I said, yeah, that was very upsetting. And I'm sure it was very upsetting for you. And she said, well, what the problem was that I am supposed to give an approximation of time. So he pulled in and she said it should be about 10 minutes. And I guess the car that was being worked on ahead of him, there was a female in the car and the male who was serving her, I guess, had started to flirt with the girl in the car. And so when 10 minutes passed, mullet boy there started to lose his mind going like, you're wasting my time. This is crazy, whatever.
Sure.
But this is what's amazing is that he blamed the female driver of the car. He blamed the customer. And that's why he was screaming, if she wants to meet somebody, she should go on Tinder. Why isn't she on Tinder? And I was like, I love that even in this scenario, like you're not even, of course he's out of his skull and is an anger case and who knows what's going on with him.
Sure.
But I love that it wasn't even directed at the dude. Like to me, the complaint should be stop flirting and do your job. No, it was how dare this woman allow herself to be flirted with? She may not have wanted the flirting. That's the other thing.
She could have been being nice to make it stop.
100%. We don't know. And then the young gal says to me, well, and the worst thing is this is the second time that's happened to that guy today. So that's the second time he's been flirting with a woman and then the car behind got pissed. And I'm like, maybe he learn from this. Maybe it's not the time to be flirting.
Maybe he should start handing out his resumes. Not at Tony Roma's, but like other places.
No jobs there.
Other places, perhaps. Maybe that's not the job for you.
Maybe it's not.
If you're too busy, checking out the lay of the land, as it were. I don't even know what that means.
I'm not sure
in that context.
I'm not sure. Anyway, long story short, too late. I then thought that maybe this could be a moment where I could impart some knowledge as a woman of more advanced years than this young guy.
Sure.
And so I just said to her, I think for me, what I find the most upsetting is that he made it, about the female, and that he was blaming her, trying to, and she goes, well, I mean, I get it. He just didn't want to wait. And I was like, okay, I have to get out of here, you guys. I'm trying to impart knowledge. My wisdom's not working. I did get a couple good laughs. I made a couple good jokes because they were taking a long time. And I did make a comment about, like, if you're not careful, I'm going to rip my shirt off and start throwing hands. That got a good laugh, which I was proud of. But then this is the joke. I 15-minute oil change. I was there over 90 minutes because by the time they finally got that situation deal with and then flushed the transmission at 90 minutes. So then, the vet trip and the Valvoline, we were already at 3.5 hours. And I was like, I got to get these dogs home. They need water. I'm like, it's a hot day. I can't keep them out any longer. This is cuckoo bananas.
And now, as a mother, did you get your pills?
I took them home and then I went out later. I had to rush out before the store closed because I was more concerned about the dogs.
That's who you are in a nutshell.
Who I am. But yeah, I had to share that. I was just like, what are the chances? And I guess maybe in Hollywood, California, the chances are high, but it felt like, my luck. Felt like my luck.
Yeah. I mean, I have those feelings where it's like, this would happen to no one else. And that was how I felt pulling into that parking lot and seeing Furlise. I'm like, yeah, this would not happen to anyone else. But that's wild to me. And I also love that you referenced Big, because I believe, I'm going to say I could be wrong, but I know I'm right. The friend was one of the sons on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yes.
He was
worked like crazy as a kid.
He was Hot Russ's little brother. Hot Russ.
Amazing. But yes, you know who I'm talking about.
Oh, I do. And he had that same haircut for years because I guess it booked work.
It did. But so that was the exact haircut. I think I may have, because in my shaky cell phone video where I was trying to be a good citizen and failing, there is an image, a very quick image of him, and I'll send it to you. And you tell me because
I can't wait.
Yeah, what a guy. But listen, I feel like unbridled rage, both from him and us at the Patriarchy. It feels like that's on brand for our show in general, but specifically, I think for this episode.
I think so too. I'm going to be angry at a lot of the Patriarchy for most of this. I think. Yeah. I mean, we're recording this a little later than we usually do, so I've already started researching the next episode. So I forget just how much I'm angry at the Patriarchy. But there's a lot of men in this episode that there's not words for how those men get away with what they do, but
Yeah. Well, for those of you wondering, and you probably already know if you clicked on the episode, today's episode is of course about Anna Nicole Smith. Some might say in some ways, not in every way, but in some ways, a modern Marilyn Monroe, perhaps in her relations to how people treated her in her life, which is tragic at best. Obviously. Now, quick aside, I need you to know, I don't know if we've talked about this yet, but I am a huge Anna Nicole Smith fan. I was obsessed with her reality show.
Okay.
Obsessed. Now,
I can't wait. Then you're going to know some of the characters in our story.
I know all the characters. And I do have to say, in my defense, I don't think that back then and I don't think I ever viewed it making fun of her ever, but I know that was an element of it. And I don't think that I was aware of really what was going on behind the scenes like I potentially am now. And I'm sure I'm going to learn more about. So I do also just want to add that I feel bad that I supported perhaps what was watching someone struggling. Again, we learn with time. We learn and grow.
Of course.
And I also want to add that this was actually our June patrons poll pick. Now, if you're wondering what the heck that means, we have something called Patreon, which is a subscription service. You can go to patreon.com/truecrimeandcocktails to learn more about that. We offer bonus episodes every month. And we also offer a poll where you can take part in voting for an episode that we'll cover on the show, just like we are right now. This again is the June choice because we missed some time because we had, different episodes going on in June and whatnot. And I also just want to add that last week's episode of the show, or a couple weeks ago, excuse me, rather, was a Taste of Patreon episode where we gave you some taste of bonus episodes. Now, we've gotten some feedback that I don't think people understood what the concept of that episode was, because there was a lot of notes about not liking that we had changed the format of the show, et cetera. And we haven't changed the format of the show. We just needed a week off, truthfully. We needed a little break. And so rather than take a dark week, we thought it would be nice to put out some content. So we were just showing you some examples of the kinds of things that go on over there on Patreon. We have a lot of fun over there. We do live Q&As every month that are a total hoot. So we just wanted to clarify that as well. If you were confused about what that episode was, that's what was up. So the first half of that one was an interview with Rachel Ray, a dear friend of mine. And then the second half was an episode with just Christy and I. So if you weren't enjoying the first half, you can fast forward to the second. And if you weren't enjoying the second half, I don't even know you, because it was hilarious.
I like the turn that took. I also, I was thinking of it when you said it, about you watching Anna Nicole's show.
Yeah.
I did not know her personally, but after, being this deep in her life, I feel like I do. And I really think she would have been so flattered that you watched the show.
Oh,
she would have really loved that, because she just wanted people to love her.
Oh, and isn't that a theme we see on this show over and over again?
Time again.
Oh, God. Yeah. Well, listen, let's get into it. Without further ado, Anna Nicole Smith. Anna Nicole Smith was a Playboy Playmate. Christy, what was I thinking? Forgot to ask you, what are you drinking? I like that that's come up so many times recently. I just get so excited to get into the episodes.
And not to disappoint, but I feel like I'm just a one-trick pony at this point. I'm doing the Palm Bay Rainbow Twist.
Listen, I'm a one-trick pony because I'm on a Matua white wine and I'm on a Diet Coke. I'm having one of my speedballs, as I like to do.
Nice.
Nice. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask. So there we go.
Sure. If you didn't reminisce about this, it's about us.
We're little kids. We've got to, I've got to just write the rest of that because it's deep begging to be recorded.
100%.
All right. The True Crime and Cocktails hip hop album is something that no one's going to see coming. But also everyone has seen coming, I think.
Oh, and if we don't get Ice Cube on at least one track, I'm going to be livid.
Yep.
Track? Are we kidding? Who am I?
I think you know.
A rap sensation. I'm not. Yet.
All right, here we go. Yeah. Anna Nicole Smith was a Playboy Playmate model and actress who gained notoriety in 1994 when, at the age of 26, she married an 89-year-old Texas billionaire. After her husband's death a year later, Anna Nicole went to court to fight for her share of her husband's estate. But before that case would be settled, Anna suffered the tragic death of her 20-year-old son, Daniel. And just 5 months later, Anna Nicole would be pronounced dead from an accidental overdose. So what happened to Anna Nicole Smith? Where did she get the toxic combination of drugs from? And who will take over her legal battles? And is it possible that those two people are one and the same? Nice.
Allegedly.
Yeah,
you're going to find when I start talking about negative things about a lawyer, a lot of allegedlys come out.
Of course. Yes, that's for our safety.
Safe. I'm being safe. Oh, well, dear people, this possibly could be the weirdest off the rails I go in various parts of this story. It just all felt right in the moment, and we're going to see what happens. So
I can't wait.
Good luck to us all. Vicki Lynn Hogan was born November 28, 1967 in Houston, Texas. She was the only daughter of Donald Hogan and Virgie Arthur, but she had 5 half siblings on her father's side. Vicki was mostly raised by her very strict mother, and when she was in the 9th grade, she was sent to live with her maternal aunt in the small town of Mahia, Texas, which had a population of less than 7,000. While in Texas, Vicki dropped out of school during her sophomore year and went to work at Jimmy's Crispy Fried Chicken, which I have a lot of questions on the legality of how you can, because I'm fairly certain they were KFC.
Oh,
because crispy in this case was spelled with a K. But it was Jim's Crispy Fried, which I find interesting, but there she met a fry cook named Billy Wayne Smith, and after a whirlwind romance, the couple married April 4th, 1985, when Vicki was 17 and Billy was just 16. Vicki gave birth to the couple's son, Daniel Wayne Smith, on January 22nd, 1986. The marriage soon fell apart and the couple separated, although their divorce would not be finalized until 1993. During this time, Vicki worked numerous jobs, including as a Red Lobster waitress, a Walmart cashier, and a dancer at a strip club. Vicki's first job as a dancer was at the Executive Suite, an upscale topless club on the north side of Houston. Vicki moved around to different clubs, such as Chez Paris, Baby O's, the Colorado Club, and this one is my favorite just based on the name, because why? Puzzles.
Wow.
Yeah, the only puzzle for me is why that was named that. I pray it meant that they had puzzles that you could put together and then glance up at boobs and then go back, find the corner piece. And
there's something that feels oddly, and I know that I'm probably wrong, but I want to believe that it was like women, they're beautiful puzzles, like we contain multitudes. Like that's what I want to believe. I know that I'm probably wrong, but puzzles is the greatest name of a strip club I've ever heard. It makes no sense. I'm writing it down. Puzzles.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things in this whole story.
Oh, wow.
So Vicki would sometimes dance under the names Robin or Nikki Hart, which she would use while she danced to Prince's Darling Nikki. I had not heard the song before, only made it through about half because I could not stop blushing. It's intense. So stop blushing. Like, okay, you prude, stop it. Around this time, Vicki began to undergo breast augmentation surgeries to become the figure that she would later be known for. Vicki started working at Rick's, which at the time was Houston's best-known men's club. However, the piece of shit owner, Robert Waters, refused to let Vicki dance during the night shift, which paid more than the day shift, because he thought that Vicki was too fat. A lovely quote from Robert here is, quote, "We considered disciplining her for her plumpness."
Plumpness.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
While working at Gigi's Cabaret in October 1991, Vicki met Texas petroleum tycoon J. Howard Marshall II. After dancing to Chris de Burgh's Lady in Red, Vicki gave Marshall a lap dance. He was smitten and invited Vicki out to lunch the next day. As Anna Nicole would later write in their wedding book, quote, "She was on stage and he was lonely. They started talking and became good friends." During lunch, Vicki complained about having to head back to work, and Marshall allegedly handed her an envelope with 10 $100 bills in it and said, quote, "Don't go to work, my lady love. You don't ever have to go back to work." I would like to know why someone just carries around envelopes with that kind of money, but I've never had that kind of money. So maybe someday if I do, because of that illustrious rap career, maybe I will learn that that's just how you handle things. I don't know.
Yeah.
Over the next few years, Marshall would continue to supply Vicki with lavish gifts, including jewelry and a Rolls Royce.
Oh, wow.
Around this time, Vicki decided to send nude photos of herself to Playboy magazine with the hopes of becoming a Playmate. The editors were apparently impressed enough that they flew her out to Los Angeles for a test photo shoot. The results were mixed. Senior contributing photographer Arnie Freytag rejected the test, believing that Vicky, quote, had a great face, but she was overweight. Piss off, Arnie.
Also, I've seen photos of her from that time, and that is
she was not
so toxic. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. However, the Playboy West Coast photo editor, Marilyn Grabowski, said, quote, you couldn't help but be mesmerized. Vicky made her debut on the March 1992 cover of Playboy, which brings me to a dream-achieving side note.
Hey!
The side notes in this, careful. They get intense. 2 months later, Vicky's Playboy became Playboy's Miss May and had her first centerfold spread in what she said she wanted to be the next Marilyn Monroe. She would appear in Playboy a total of 5 times between 1992 and 1997, including being dubbed Playmate of the Year in 1993. Shortly after her Playboy cover appearance, Vicky was approached by Paul Marciano, president and founder of Guess Jeans. He said he chose Vicky for her vivacious curves and old Hollywood style. Paul said, quote, she doesn't even know how beautiful she is. I was crazy about shooting her. She had a magnetic personality, but you could see that she was fragile. And not only did Paul give Vicky's career a boost by making her the new face of Guess Jeans, he also gave Vicky a new name, as Paul felt that Vicky Lynn sounded cheap. And just like that, Anna Nicole Smith was born. I like that Vicky Lynn he couldn't handle, but Anna, he was like, yep, Anna Nicole. Yep. I'm like, okay, sure, great.
Sure.
Both are lovely. I don't think there's anything wrong with Vicky Lynn, but that's fine.
Yeah, it's interesting.
She wanted to go for it, and she went for it. At this point, Anna Nicole was still seeing J. Howard Marshall II, and after several proposals for reasons we're never going to understand, Anna finally agreed to marry him. On June 27th, 1994, 26-year-old Anna Nicole and 89-year-old Marshall both wore white as they said I do in Houston's White Dove Wedding Chapel. Anna Nicole walked on an aisle of white roses, not rose petals, full rose buds, which feels not difficult or not easy to walk on.
It feels treacherous. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially because she probably wore heels. After the ceremony, the couple released 2 white doves from a cage, which was part of the specialty package that they purchased from the chapel, which is how it got its name, White Dove Wedding Chapel. After a brief reception, Anna Nicole left for the airport as she had a photo shoot in Greece. It is said that Marshall wept when she left, which you want to feel bad for him, but don't worry, folks, you won't.
Yeah.
Now, based on the massive age difference and the fact that he was, no offense, Mr. Marshall, but creepy as hell, people speculated that Anna Nicole married Marshall for his money. She, of course, denies this. And she said she loved him and that age didn't matter to her. And she said she wanted to wait until she had a career and money of her own before they officially got married. And at the time, she was in fact making quite a career for herself. Being on the cover of Playboy boosted Anna Nicole's popularity. And not only did she replace Claudia Schiffer in the new Guess Jeans campaign, she modeled for H&M, Lane Bryant, and Heatherette. Soon, Anna Nicole was gracing the covers of magazines such as Marie Claire, GQ, and Vanity Fair. She was also modeling overseas and was signed to one of Hollywood's biggest talent agencies, William Morris. In August 1994, New York Magazine used a photo of Anna Nicole on the cover of their issue titled White Trash Nation. 2 months later, Anna Nicole sued the magazine, claiming the photo was used without her consent. The lawsuit was settled for an unknown amount.
Good for her.
Yes, which I'm dying to know the amount because I'm nosy.
Yep.
Anna Nicole made her big screen debut in the 1994 Tim Robbins comedy, The Hudsucker Proxy, which I saw recently for the first time. And I can honestly say it will be the last time. And while her debut only featured her in a single scene, Anna Nicole secured a larger part in Naked Gun 33 1/3, The Final Insult, which released just 7 days after the Hudsucker Proxy. Film critics gave Anna's character, Tanya Peters, favorable reviews. Unfortunately, neither movie did very much to advance her career. Anna did a few similar films, including her first leading role in the 1996 movie Skyscraper, which unfortunately can best be described as low-budget, direct-to-video, and soft-core exploitation. In the late 90s, Anna Nicole would appear on various sitcoms such as Veronica's Closet and Ally McBeal, and thanks to her popularity with tabloids and gossip columnists, Anna Nicole was given her own show on E! Called The Anna Nicole Show. The show featured Anna's son Daniel, as well as people from her life, such as her interior decorator Bobby Trendy, her miniature poodle Sugar Pie. The show ran from August 2002 to October 2004. In 2003, Anna Nicole appeared in a movie that I've never seen, but sounds like I need to see it as soon as humanly possible. It was called Wasabi Tuna, and in it, Anna Nicole plays an overtop version of herself, whose poodle gets stolen on Halloween by a team of drag queens who are dressed like Anna Nicole Smith.
This is the original John Wick, is what I'm hearing.
I pray that it's one and the same. That's all I would like.
Wow.
In 2005, Anna Nicole played Lucy in an indie film called Illegal Aliens. It was released direct to video shortly after Anna's death, which brings me to an indie movie side note. Also in Illegal Aliens, Joan Laurer, aka China from WWF, which is now WWE. China, actually, it could be just W now. Fuck, I don't even care.
No, it's WWE.
Is it still WWE? Okay,
as far as I know.
Sure. When we liked it, it was WWF.
Thank you very much.
When we were super intense into it.
Yeah.
China was the first woman to participate in the Royal Rumble and King of the Ring, as well as the first female to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame as part of a group as a member of the D-Generation X. D-Generation X? Sure. A T-spelling side note in a side note. From 1996 to 2001, China dated Paul Levesque, who is Triple H.
Triple H.
Who it said he cheated on her with Stephanie McMahon. China then dated another wrestler named Sean Waltman. The couple would spend years in a cycle of breaking up and getting engaged and breaking up again. And in 2004, they filmed a sex tape that was released by the same company that released Paris Hilton's sex tape in the hopes of getting a second hit. They did not.
Yeah.
Fascinating side note in a side note side note.
This is great.
I'm out of control.
I love it.
China's breast implants were custom made. After her first implants ruptured during a wrestling match, her surgeon created a specific model just for her known as the China 2000s, which is close to my love of puzzles, but not quite. So back to 1994, Anna Nicole's married. I was going to say happily, but I honestly don't know that for sure. In early 1995, Anna's husband, Marshall, started to become unwell, so his son, Pierce, moved in with him and barred Anna Nicole from the house. Pierce then informed Anna that Marshall was no longer paying her bills. Pierce then limited Anna Nicole's visits with her own husband to only 30 minutes at a time. And on August 4th, 1995, just 13 months after their wedding, J. Howard Marshall II died at the age of 90. Anna Nicole planned the funeral that included an all-white motif, teddy bears near the coffin, and Anna Nicole's rendition of Bette Midler's Wind Beneath My Wings.
Oh.
Marshall's family held a more low-key service days later. And somehow, Anna Nicole was not in the will. However, Anna Nicole claims that in return for marriage, Marshall verbally promised her half of his estate, which at the time was worth $1.6 billion. Marshall's son, Pierce Marshall, disputed Anna Nicole's claims and would fight her in court until his own death in June 2006. However, Marshall's other son, J. Howard Marshall III, was on Anna Nicole's side, also claiming his father had verbally promised him a portion of the estate. And why did he make this claim? Because he wasn't written in the will either. Which brings me to a Marshall family tea spilling tangent. It's a tangent because it's lengthy. So J. Howard Marshall II was born in 1905, which might make him the oldest person I have ever mentioned on this podcast.
Yeah.
But like Anna Nicole, age is just a number to me. Unless it's my own, then it's horrifying and I can't spend time focusing on it.
Good joke.
Thank you.
Yep.
After graduating from Yale Law School, Marshall served as an assistant dean at the school and taught courses in business and finance. I won't bore you with the details, but he went on to write the Code of Fair Competition for Petroleum Industry in the 1930s. He became special counsel to the president of Standard Oil of California, which is now known as Chevron, and helped to develop U.S. energy policy during World War II. Marshall co-founded Great Northern Oil in 1952 and built an oil refinery in Minnesota that could refine Canadian crude oil. Fred Cook acquired interest in the company and over the years ended up swapping a stake for Cook Industries with the rest of Marshall's shares in Great Northern Oil. Turned out to be an amazing offer. Cook Industries is involved with fertilizers, asphalt, natural gas, plastics, chemicals, etc. Their annual revenue in 2019, a single year, was $115 billion.
Jesus. You know what I'm also realizing?
Yeah.
I'm curious, and I have to look up again the names and stuff, but I'm curious what if there was any crossover between Jay Marshall and Armie Hammer's family, because they were big into the oil business out here at that time.
Oh, that would have been a fun side note for me to bring up.
Side note on a side note, tangent side note.
Yeah, I would like a little counter to show how many times I say the word side note.
It's a fun drinking game.
It is, and play it safely at home. Not that you'd be wandering around in public drinking, listening to the podcast, but if you are, I'd like to come along.
Yeah.
84% of the company is owned by members of the Cook family, and 16% was owned by J. Howard Marshall II. So Marshall and Fred Cook are in this agreement. They didn't want Cook Industries to be a public company. But in 1980, Marshall's oldest son, Marshall III, sided with members of the Cook family who wanted to make the company public. This pissed Marshall off. And not only did he purchase back the company's stock that he had originally given to his son as a gift, which was worth approximately $8 million at the time, he then just removed his oldest son from his will.
Interesting.
Yep. So when Anna Nicole starts claiming she's owed money, of course the oldest son is going to run in and claim the same because he tried to go behind his father's back and ended up getting himself removed from the will. And it's that 16% of Cook Industries that Anna Nicole would spend the rest of her life fighting for. And when I started us on this tangent, I promised some tea spilling. Buckle up, dear listeners.
Yes.
Marshall was married multiple times before he met Anna Nicole. The first time was in 1931 to his childhood sweetheart, Eleanor Pierce, with whom he had his two sons, J. Howard Marshall III and E. Pierce Marshall. The couple divorced in 1961. Marshall then married his assistant, Betty Bohannon, in 1961 and remained with her until her death in 1991. It is said that Betty, or Tiger, as some called her, was diagnosed with early signs of Alzheimer's in 1982. And because of this, Marshall did what any devoted husband would do. And that is, of course, start visiting strip clubs.
Oh, boy.
And that's where he met and started a relationship with a dancer named Jewel Diane Walker, whose nickname was Lady. Marshall continued to have an affair with Lady, showering her with lavish gifts for 9 years until 1991, when Lady died on the operating table during a facelift.
Oh, wow.
Which brings me to a quick tangent side note. Marshall even left a letter to one of his sons stating that if he were to die before Lady, that he would want to make sure that his son would financially care for Lady, saying, quote, Without her, I don't know how I would have survived these last 9 years. She is intelligent, gracious, and beautiful as her picture will attest. I would marry her tomorrow if there was any honorable way. If I predecease you, I charge you to take care of her in any way she may need, financially and in all ways.
Oh,
what does that mean?
I think you know.
I don't want to think about it, but I think we all know.
That's so creepy.
But something, I'm going to say something for Lady Walker. She saw an opportunity and she took it. Marshall was buying her hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of jewelry every year. And at one point, Lady had a jeweler create fake fingernails for her that had 14 karat gold tips. He bought her multiple Rolls Royces and Jaguars. I don't know why she needed multiple, but there we go. There was even a mansion which overlooked a golf course. The mansion was completely painted in white or gold and had her name spelled out in tiles at the bottom of the swimming pool. But Marshall was never allowed to step foot inside. As Lady said, quote, "When I can set foot in his house as Mrs. Marshall, he can set foot in mine." Marshall also paid Lady's son's college tuition and bought her parents a house. When Lady died, Marshall paid $52,000 for her funeral, which included a copper coffin that was similar to the one that Elvis Presley had.
Oh.
So Lady dies in July 1991, and Marshall is devastated. So in late July, he checks himself into the Bohemian Grove, the country's most exclusive men's retreat. When he returned home, he found out that Lady had left all of the gifts that Marshall had given her, including jewelry, furs, cars, etc., to her children. And this outraged Marshall, who then sued Lady's heirs to try and get his money back. Which brings me to a fraudulent side note. Apparently, Marshall was most interested in retrieving $1 million in stock that he had transferred to Lady, which had been a violation of the Security and Exchange Commission rules. He also had some IRS problems due to the gifts he had given her, so he was trying to get it back so he wasn't going to get in trouble. And just when Marshall thought his life couldn't get any worse, his first wife, Betty, or his second wife, Betty, who, yes, at this point, he is still legally married to, died September 12th, 1991. And then a month later, Marshall meets and becomes enamored with Anna Nicole.
Wow. He's got a real kind of pattern here.
He does. He does. You should see, I will post a photo of Lady Walker. If you just change the hair color, there is a very, very, well, there's a couple of large similarities to Anna Nicole. I'll tell you that.
Ah, gotcha.
Yep. So if their age difference or the fact that Marshall was very clearly trying to fill his lady void with Anna Nicole makes you think they weren't truly in love, please remember that Marshall called Anna Nicole the light of my life, and Anna Nicole called Marshall Pawpaw.
Stop.
No, it's
Pawpaw.
Yes, it's.
Oh,
I mean, we'll get into it later, but it really comes down to, it's very obvious. She wanted the father figure that she didn't have,
right?
And so I've heard that they never consummated the marriage. So, and probably because she was like, no thanks.
Well, you'll love this also. I know you may have heard my phone there for a second. I've been Googling like crazy because I think that Armand Hammer was also a member of Bohemian Grove.
This is wild.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't shock me. Listen, I know we're going to get into that, but which is so sad. And I'm so curious about, I have lots of thoughts about that, which I'll save, but Pawpaw is ridiculous.
It's, I mean, nothing says more like this couple doesn't have sex. Like his nickname, his pet name is Pawpaw. But
I have so many questions, which again, I know that I have to save, but I'll just tease right now by saying like, it is interesting to me though, that she was making all of her own money. And I know that that money doesn't compare to the amount of money that he has. I get that, but it's interesting to me that she did go through with it. There's lots of details about it that I've always found fascinating. And that's one of them, is that it's like, she didn't have to marry him though. And she did. So what's that about? But again, getting ahead of myself. I
agree. So Anna Nicole and Marshall get married. 14 months later, he dies. The will is read, her name noticeably absent. So she decides to fight it. And while that case was being handled in Texas, Anna Nicole filed for bankruptcy in California in 2000, claiming that Marshall's son had interfered with her potential inheritance. The court awarded her $474 million. Which brings me to a bankruptcy side note. This was not Anna Nicole's first time in bankruptcy court. Maria Antonia Serrato, who worked for Anna Nicole as a housekeeper and nanny from 1992 to 1994, sued Anna Nicole in 1994 for sexual harassment, sexual assault, and false imprisonment. Anna Nicole countersued and claimed that Maria had slandered her and had even tried to kidnap Anna Nicole's son. But Anna Nicole's lawsuit was dismissed because she failed to comply with an evidence procedure. And because of that, Anna Nicole failed to follow through with the lawsuit, so Maria was awarded the default judgment of $850,000.
Whoa.
And because of this judgment, Anna Nicole had to file for bankruptcy in 1996. So around this part, it's like, okay, yeah, she wouldn't mind that part, a piece of that 1.6 billion. I get that.
Right.
However, Anna Nicole's $474 million win was very short-lived. In March 2002, a federal judge vacated the ruling and reduced the reward to $88 million. But in December 2004, a 3-judge panel of the United States Court of Appeals reversed the decision on the grounds that the bankruptcy court can't make a decision on an issue that is outside of bankruptcy law. The Texas probate court found that Anna Nicole was entitled to nothing. And not only that, but a judge also ordered Anna Nicole to pay over $1 million to cover the legal costs and expenses of Pierce Marshall. The conflict between these courts forced the matter into a federal court. And even though Pierce Marshall died from an infection in 2006 and Anna Nicole died in 2007, the court cases continued on without them. Marshall's widow, Elaine, pursued the case on his behalf, and Anna Nicole's lawyer/friend, who we'll get into later, Howard, pursued the case on behalf of Anna Nicole's daughter. We will get into that as well shortly. But the point is, even when the major players are gone, people are still fighting for what they feel is theirs. After several more years of struggle, the case finally finished in 2011 when it was decided that Anna Nicole's estate would not receive any money from the Marshall estate. Which brings me to insanely bizarre side note. Before her death, Anna Nicole had been investigated by the FBI in connection with an alleged murder plot against the son of her late husband, the very same son that she was battling in court. Anna Nicole was investigated in 2000 and 2001 in a murder for hire plot which targeted E. Pierce Marshall. The FBI determined there was insufficient evidence for the case to go forward. But as part of the investigation, the FBI confiscated a revolver, a 3.5-inch stainless steel knife, and for some reason, a black and orange hat that is best described as a Dr. Seuss style hat. No word as to why they needed it, but all items were returned to Anna Nicole 7 months later.
That's so bizarre.
Puzzles.
I was just going to say, that's almost as bizarre as puzzles.
Yeah, there's just so many things in this story that I'm like, that doesn't make sense, but okay.
Yeah.
During the court battles, Anna Nicole started to suffer from seizures and panic attacks. She was taking a lot of painkillers on top of the prescriptions that she already had for migraines, stomach problems, depression, and back problems that were caused by her implants. Cringeworthy side note. Shortly after Anna Nicole's death, the surgeon who performed her breast augmentation tried to shop around the video of her surgery. The surgeon claimed that he only promised to keep it confidential during the star's lifetime. But Anna Nicole's lawyer claimed the surgery was taped without Anna's consent. Thankfully, a judge issued a restraining order that prevents the release of the tape. So Anna Nicole is taking a lot of pills, and in 1996, she voluntarily checks herself into the Betty Ford Clinic. And while the media were portraying her as a substance abuser, according to her medical records, no doctor at the clinic ever referred to Anna Nicole as addicted. The doctors did, however, note that Anna Nicole suffered from chronic pain, depression, and anxiety. Shortly after she left the clinic, one of her implants ruptured, which required reconstructive surgery and forced Anna Nicole back on painkillers. And so around this time, she ended up being dropped by her agency, William Morris. In late 2003, Anna Nicole returned to the public eye as the new face of Trim Spa after allegedly losing 69 pounds or 31 kilograms on the diet pill. Both Trim Spa and Anna Nicole would be sued in a class action lawsuit alleging the marketing of the weight loss pill as false and misleading. Around this time, it seemed like Anna Nicole was desperately trying to cling to the public eye while also choosing to ignore the fact that she had just become a walking punchline.
Right.
In November 2004, Anna Nicole introduced Kanye West at the American Music Awards. She slurred throughout her intro and at one point said, "Like my body?" It was one of those like, you like it? It's because of Trim Spa. And bless her heart. Kanye ended up putting her in his music video for the new workout plan, where she said that very same, "like my body," which, I mean, he's a businessman at all times. I'll give him that much.
Yeah.
I'll give him no more.
Yep.
I'll also give him Gold Digger because that slaps. Did I use that term right?
You did it. You did it.
God, I swear, I promise I won't use it again for now. In March 2005, at the first MTV Australia Video Music Awards, Anna Nicole spoofed Janet Jackson's wardrobe malfunction from Super Bowl 38 by pulling down her dress to reveal both breasts, each covered with the MTV logo, which was at least planned. Unlike the incident during another awards show where her left sleeve gave way and exposed one of her breasts, which she just kind of did like it is what it is, and let it go. Later in 2005, Anna Nicole entered a wet t-shirt contest at a club called the Freaky Tiki in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The contest led to Anna having a very public argument with celebrity photographer Larry Burkhead, which led to the revelation that Anna and Larry were a couple.
Oh.
Anna Nicole met Larry when she was in Louisville attending the Kentucky Derby. Larry was working at the event as a photographer. Larry claims he spoke with Anna and that they exchanged a kiss. Soon after, Larry said he packed his bags and was ready to move in with Anna, who was at the time living with her son Daniel, her assistant Kim Walther, and her lawyer, who was acting more as Anna's manager and publicist. Larry said that Anna Nicole's lawyer constantly interfered in their relationship. In 1996, Anna Nicole signed up for representation with a small Beverly Hills legal firm. One of the partners of the firm was Howard K. Stern. No, not Howard Stern, the shock jock, although I don't know how much we use the term shock jock.
I appreciate your use of the term shock jock. That's awesome.
But not that Howard Stern. Another Howard
K. Stern.
Correct. Now, Howard will come up a lot in the rest of our story. After their initial meeting, he was very involved in Anna Nicole's life, including being part of the Anna Nicole Smith Show. Larry claims that not only was Howard always around, but that Howard was supplying Anna Nicole with a duffel bag full of prescription drugs when she was in a hospital trying to detox. Some would also call Howard gatekeeper, as he allegedly had taken over Anna Nicole's phone and would screen her calls. Larry said he dated Anna Nicole from 2004 until they had a falling out in May 2006, when he refused to buy her a pair of sunglasses. Larry claims that Anna yelled at him, and that was the last time he saw her. Soon after, Anna Nicole moved to the Bahamas. And why did she run off to the Bahamas? Well, it could have something to do with the fact that then June 1st, 2006, Anna Nicole announced her pregnancy in a video clip on her official website. On September 7th, 2006, Anna Nicole gave birth to her daughter, 6-pound, 9-ounce Danny Lynn Hope Marshall Stern. Yes, not only was the baby named after Anna Nicole's son, Daniel, but also after Anna Nicole's second husband, J. Howard Marshall. And just to clarify, the birth certificate lists Hope Marshall as the baby's middle names. So maybe it's just an homage to what Anna's legal last name would have been at the time.
Right.
I don't know. The birth certificate lists Anna Nicole's personal attorney, Howard K. Stern, as the father. Larry Burkhead commented that during their relationship, he believed that Howard had a fantasy about being with Anna Nicole, but that Anna wasn't interested. Larry even claimed that anytime he spent the night at Anna's house, Howard would always sleep on the couch. In fact, many people in Anna Nicole's life felt that Howard was obsessed with Anna, but that the feelings were not reciprocated. Howard's sister, however, claims Howard and Anna Nicole were in love, but they just wouldn't admit it. But Anna Nicole hadn't publicly come forward to say she was dating anyone. Later, Larry would say, quote, "No one ever knew I was her boyfriend. The whole time we dated, if you look at the video, I'm in the back carrying my camera bag. She didn't want me in the spotlight." So she didn't suggest who she was seeing, but she listed Howard on the birth certificate. So Howard has to be the father, right? And Howard even goes on Larry King Live to announce that he was the father. Howard told Larry King, quote, "We love each other. It's been going on for a very long time. And because of my relationship as her lawyer, we felt it best to keep everything hidden. And we've done a pretty good job of that." When the media started to suggest that maybe Howard was using her, Anna Nicole said, quote, "This has been going on for years. Unfortunately, we have a lot of enemies who thought we were going to try, and they're enemies who we thought would try and hurt us in certain ways." But you know who wasn't believing their relationship? Larry Burkhead.
Right.
Remember, Larry was with Anna until May 2006. So when Anna announced her pregnancy a month later, Larry was confident that he was the father. Larry filed a lawsuit to establish paternity. A judge in the United States ordered that a DNA test be performed. And we will get into the paternity and that mess later on. But first, we need to take a small moment to focus on Anna Nicole's oldest child, her son, Daniel Wayne Smith. As you may recall, Daniel was born January 22nd, 1986. In 1987, Anna Nicole and Daniel's father, Billy, separated and divorced in 1993. Daniel and Anna Nicole were super close, and when she gave birth to Danny Lynn, Daniel flew to the Bahamas to meet his new sister just 2 days after she was born. Daniel arrived at the hospital around 11 p.m. on September 9th, 2006. According to doctors' records, a nurse making her rounds at 6:20 a.m. noted that Daniel was attending to his mother's comfort. During the hourly rounds after that, Daniel was observed to be asleep. Shortly after 9:30, Anna tried to wake Daniel, but noticed that he was no longer breathing. According to hospital records, a nurse was called to Anna Nicole's room, and doctors were called immediately after and started to initiate CPR. A code blue was called, and a team rushed from the emergency room. For 22 minutes, hospital staff tried to resuscitate Daniel, who was then pronounced dead at 10:05 a.m. He was only 20 years old. And in those moments, Howard did what any human would do. He grabbed his camera and said, quote, "Let me get a picture."
What?
And he proceeded to take pictures of Anna Nicole cradling her dead son.
Jesus, I didn't know that.
Howard would later claim that Anna asked him to take the photos. Howard had also taken photos of Anna and Daniel when Daniel first arrived. But I call absolute bullshit that in that moment, a mother who's grieving and in complete shock is going to say, "Take a photo."
Yeah, no.
There's no chance. And wouldn't you know, shortly after Daniel's death, Howard listed the photos of Anna and Daniel, the ones where he was alive, on a photo service where they were purchased by In Touch magazine for $600,000 and to Entertainment Tonight for nearly $400,000. When his body was transferred to the lab, Anna Nicole had to be sedated. A lawyer for Anna Nicole read the following statement. The devastation and grief over Daniel's sudden death, coupled with the sedation, has to be so extreme that Anna Nicole experienced memory loss of the event. Anna Nicole was so distraught at the loss of Daniel that she refused to leave his side, and it was necessary to sedate her in order to check her out of the hospital. Now, I find this fascinating because they were checking her out of the hospital the day that Daniel died. That's 3 days after she had Danny Lynn by C-section. And not only that, she was so devastated after Daniel's death that she had to be sedated so that they were able to remove his body from the room. What part of any of this means that that woman should be released from medical care?
Yeah.
I'm sure that things are different in the Bahamas, so I can only compare this to my own experiences. But as a mother,
thank you,
who has had 3 C-sections, for the first 2, I was in the hospital at least 4 or 5 days, at least. And yes, for my last one, I did push my doctor into releasing me 2 days after the surgery because I was a baby and I didn't want to spend my birthday in a hospital, which looking back was insane because I suffered so badly through the next few days at home, trying to sleep in a regular bed. And should I have been released early? Absolutely not. Should Anna Nicole have been released 3 days later? Not a chance. Anna said that she needed to contact her mother, and Howard told her, just wait. Anna Nicole's mother, Virgie, found out about her grandson's death while watching the news. Virgie said of Howard, quote, he kept all of us from her, not just me. He kept her whole family away from her. He kept her to himself. People that loved her tried to help her. Those who didn't love her lived with her and lived off her. Days later, when Anna Nicole was finally able to call her mother, Virgie said that Anna was slurring and sounded very much under the influence, and partway through, the call was cut off. Daniel's autopsy came back inconclusive, which brings us to an educational side note.
Please.
In the Bahamas, there's something called the coroner's court was established in 1993. The intention was that every unexplained or sudden death that occurred in the Bahamas would be referred to this coroner's court for an inquiry and, if necessary, an inquest, so the cause of any suspicious death would be independently determined. Linda Virgil was a magistrate who, with the title of Her Majesty's Coroner in the Bahamas. A magistrate is someone who can enforce laws with a limited jurisdiction. So Linda's specific designation was coroner, and because Daniel's death was unexplained, Linda wanted an inquiry to be done. Linda wanted to go to the house to speak with Anna, and despite Howard continually trying to prevent this from happening, Linda got what she wanted. 2 days later, Linda made a public announcement in front of reporters stating Daniel's death was suspicious and that she would be holding an inquest into Daniel's death, which could result in criminal charges.
Whoa.
The inquest was scheduled for October 23rd. However, on September 21st, just 11 days after Daniel's death, Bahamian Chief Justice Sir Burton Hall removed Linda's title of coroner. And not only that, he abolished the coroner's court. So Linda could no longer had jurisdiction to work on Daniel's case. And even if she did, she was no longer able to send it for an inquiry because that system was gone. So now with the coroner's court gone, this means every magistrate would be able to perform the duties of a coroner, not just the ones specifically selected under the coroner's court. And no reason was given why this decision was made. A decision, I might add, was made less than a week after Linda announced that she would be holding an inquest into his death. Burton Hall then said the change wasn't a vote of no confidence in Linda's abilities and that she would still be a magistrate and still be able to hear inquests. But in regards to Daniel's case, he said, quote, she won't be hearing that one. If Daniel truly died from a drug overdose, then why does it look like someone's trying to cover up what happened to him? Literal laws were changed in their country in order to prevent a further inquiry into Daniel's death. Tell me how that death was some sort of an accident.
And I mean, how could that happen? Is it possible that somebody just came into $1 million based on photos that were taken of the victim right before he died, the day before he died?
It's there are a lot of things I would like to allegedly say.
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to alleging a lot of things with you.
It's just
about this.
Fascinating that someone, I'm not saying who, but someone went so far as to change actual laws in their country to make it so that you don't automatically look further into a suspicious death. You just let it go.
Yeah, that is truly wild. And you've blown my mind because I thought I knew everything about Nicole Smith, and I don't. You've proven that many times over the past hour, but certainly with that. Listen, let's take a very quick break, refresh your drink, hit the can, and we're going to be right back with more stunning revelations about Nicole Smith on this episode of True Crime and Cocktails, Famous Fatalities Edition. Welcome back to this episode of True Crime and Cocktails, Famous Fatalities Edition. We're, of course, talking about Nicole Smith. We left off talking about Christy blowing my mind with this change to Bahamian law, change to actual legislation that happened because of Daniel Smith's death, which is, I mean, I'm almost speechless, which is rare for me on this show. But again, I thought I knew everything about Nicole, and I clearly don't. So I'd love to hear more about what you got about Daniel and the investigation into his death or lack thereof.
Well, in March 2008, a Bahamian jury determined that Daniel died from an accidental drug overdose. The 7-member jury, which deliberated for less than 2 hours, said the cause of death was, quote, non-dependent use of drugs, meaning that Daniel was not addicted, but was also not aware that the combination of drugs that he took would kill him, which I felt was very specific to say it that way.
Yeah.
So Daniel's family were not happy with the original autopsy results, so they paid for a pathologist to do a second autopsy. And that pathologist was none other, and I apologize, I should have looked into how to say his name better, Dr. Cyril Wetsch, who has performed thousands of autopsies, including JonBenet Ramsey and Rebecca Zahaw.
No way.
He was even featured on, he was on The Staircase, I think at some point, when they were doing the filming later on. So he didn't do the actual autopsy, but he was there during the after stuff. And he was on the JonBenet documentary that they did that Burke sued.
Oh, of course.
But he was the doctor in that situation.
Wow.
So Dr. Cyril found the antidepressant, oh Jesus Christy, amitriptyline, as well as 2 over-the-counter cold medications and a mild over-the-counter sedative in Daniel's system. But the levels of those medications were all so low, they were considered to be insignificant. Dr. Cyril, notice how I keep just saying his first name because I know how to say it.
I like it.
Concluded that Daniel died of a lethal combination of methadone and the antidepressants Zoloft and Lexapro. Methadone is a synthetic narcotic used to treat those who suffer from opiate addictions, and it can also be prescribed for pain management. Cyril said, quote, they were all at high therapeutic levels and none on its own was at a lethal level. It is a classic situation that we see so often known as acute combined drug toxicity. Together, it's a central nervous system depressant. All 3 of these drugs act to depress the brain and by doing so indirectly result in the depression of cardiac and respiratory function. So it's likely that Daniel would have become drowsy, which would have progressed further into unconsciousness, he would have then gone into cardiac arrest. So the question becomes, how did Daniel get these medications? Well,
Yeah.
2 months prior, a doctor in California prescribed Daniel Zoloft after a recent breakup with a girlfriend. But what about the rest? Well, I've read that Daniel was prescribed Lexapro prior to his trip to help with his anxiety over the flight. So let's talk about the methadone. A nurse named Nadine Carey heard the code blue and rushed to the room at 9:38 a.m. Nadine pulled the bed that was closest to the door out into the hall in order to give doctors more room to work. When she moved the bed, she noticed two white tablets on top of the sheets, one smaller than the other. Following protocol, Nadine gave the pills to the doctor on duty, who put them in a plastic bag and gave them to the Bohemian police constable. The pills were later found to be carisoprodol, a muscle relaxant, and methadone. At the time, Anna Nicole had prescriptions for both of those medications. In fact, Anna Nicole's personal physician, Dr. Sandeep Kapoor, had written Anna a prescription for methadone on August 25th, just 13 days before she gave birth. A legal side note: the prescription was written for Michelle Chase, which was one of Anna Nicole's aliases. A pharmacy in the San Fernando Valley filled the prescription, which was then sent to Vicky Marshall at a P.O. box in the Bahamas. Under California law, it is illegal to prescribe a controlled substance to a false name. So things aren't looking good, legally speaking, for Dr. Kapoor. But we're going to talk about him later. So was Daniel abusing pills in some way and maybe just took a bad combination? Maybe. Is it possible that someone gave him pills knowing they were a lethal mixture? Also maybe. But who would have any reason to want Daniel dead? He was practically still just a kid. Well, prior to his death, Daniel was attending Los Angeles Valley College and was living with a longtime friend of Anna Nicole's. During this time, Daniel reached out to a private investigator named Jack Harding. According to Harding, Daniel was concerned with the overbearing presence of Howard in Anna's life. Daniel was incredibly close with his mother and had been struggling to deal with the fact that Anna had moved to the Bahamas. As in, Daniel was physically ill over it. He complained of stomach cramps and back pain, and doctors said he was depressed and very stressed. Daniel's biggest concern was what Howard was doing to Anna Nicole and the people around her. Daniel said anytime he called the house, Howard would hang up on him. During Daniel's meeting with Harding, Howard was described as a Svengali, and that Howard was always feeding Anna Nicole drugs. Harding claims that Daniel said he witnessed Howard pimping his mother out to various men. Howard would allegedly give Anna some pills, and then men would come to the house and then go be alone with Anna in her bedroom. Whether or not these accusations are true, I don't know, but it is said that Daniel was terrified of Howard and that he genuinely feared for his mother's life. Not to mention, shortly after Daniel's death, Howard went on Larry King Live and claimed that Daniel was sleeping in the bed closest to the door, the bed where Nurse Nadine found the pills, one of which was methadone. But according to every member of medical staff, no one saw Daniel in that second bed. All of the witnesses said the only person they ever saw in that bed was Howard. So Daniel is worried about the effect that Howard was having on Anna's life, and suddenly Daniel dies. And some Bahamian government official put a stop to an inquiry into Daniel's death. And Howard's death is sketchy at best. It just feels like a conspiracy, but maybe I've been doing this so long that I'm just suspicious of everything now.
Oh, trust no one. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's absolutely where I'm at. After Daniel's death, Anna Nicole, of course, was devastated. During the funeral, it's been said that she tried to climb inside the coffin, which is heartbreaking. And while I'm sure she would have been just as devastated, regardless as to when this happened, to have it happen when you've just given birth and you're exhausted and your emotions are completely out of whack, I can't even imagine what a blow that would have been. After Anna Nicole's death, Howard said, quote, "Anna saw herself as both mother and father to Daniel From the time I met her, everything was for Daniel. I would say that physically she died last week, but in a lot of ways, emotionally, she died when Daniel died. And of course, a part of her died when her child did. And not only that, but Anna was dealing with a lot of bullshit at the time after Daniel died. During all of this, Anna Nicole was also in court battling a South Carolina developer and former friend, Ben Thompson, over the $1 million house where Anna was living in the Bahamas. Thompson said that the home was initially a place for Anna to stay when she got to the island, and that if she wanted to stay for longer, she was told to sign a mortgage and buy the house from him. But Anna refused to do that, so Thompson had a deed drawn up in his name. Lawyers for Anna Nicole claim that she purchased the house from two men, neither of whom were Thompson. So I have no idea what's going on, but this Thompson dude sent a letter to Anna Nicole telling her that she had to move out by October 31st, and that failure to do so would result in formal eviction proceedings in court. So Anna's dealing with court battles over the house she's living in, still in ongoing court battles with her second husband, Marshall's estate, and on top of that, she's grieving over her son while raising a newborn and dealing with court battles over that very newborn. Throughout the pregnancy, Anna Nicole refused to reveal the identity of the father to the press. And honestly, it wasn't the press's business to begin with.
No.
On the birth certificate, Anna listed Howard Stern, not that one, as the father. And Howard went on Larry King Live and told the world that the baby was Anna's ray of hope and that he was the proud father. Howard claimed he'd been in a relationship with Anna for the past 3 years, and Howard's own sister even claimed that Anna and Howard had been trying for a while to have a baby. And I don't think any of us are buying any of that. But desperate to display their love, on September 28th, 2006, Anna Nicole and Howard K. Stern held an informal commitment ceremony on a 41-foot catamaran known as Margaritaville. The ceremony was officiated by a Baptist minister and involved the couple exchanging vows and rings, but no marriage certificate was issued as it wasn't legally binding. It was more about love than legalities. And honestly, getting a marriage license in the Bahamas is like super hard. Like, it involves the couple have to both be present at the time of the application, and then it requires a $40 fee. No blood tests of any kind or anything. So maybe it's not super hard after all. Howard said that the event was intended to be a private affair between two adults who were deeply in love and needing simple reassurances that they could count on one another. It was meant for Howard, Anna, Danny Lynn, and just a few close family and friends. And yet somehow photos of and a full story of the event, the private event, were sold to People magazine for a reported $1 million.
Yep, there it is.
But Howard is insulted by the very idea that anyone would claim he was only with Anna Nicole for her money. He said, quote, "To me, she was perfect. She was sweet. She was smart. She had a good heart. To me, she was everything." He also admitted that Anna Nicole paid for everything too. He said, quote, "I was with Anna. My income was with her. Anna paid my rent. Everything that I did for her legally, I didn't charge her for." And even though Howard was listed as the executor of Anna Nicole's will, he said he would totally waive any fee that he would be entitled to for his work in that role. But he was quick to point out that as her lawyer, he would be entitled to 5% of any money that Anna Nicole was awarded from the dispute over the Marshall's estate. So this absolute hero, Howard, claims to be Danny Lynn's father, but so does Anna's ex-boyfriend, Larry Burkhead. And as I stated, a judge from the US was forcing DNA tests. But before the tests could be done, Anna Nicole died. In February 2007, Anna Nicole had to go to Florida to fulfill some spokesperson commitments to Trim Spa, the weight loss company that she'd been working for since October 2003. Anna Nicole left 5-month-old Danny Lynn in the care of nannies at home in the Bahamas when she checked into the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Florida on Monday, February 5th. Anna was accompanied by her bodyguard, Maurice Brighttop, her psychiatrist, Dr. Christine Eroshevich, and her lawyer / companion, Howard K. Stern. Around 10 a.m., Anna headed to a dance lesson for a music video she was producing for an upcoming Trim Spa event. She was back at the hotel around 11 a.m. The following morning, Anna Nicole woke up with a temperature of 100 degrees. It is said that Anna was given chloral hydrate to help her sleep. Over the next few days, Anna would mostly sleep, except for the moment when Dr. Christine later claims she found Anna sitting in an empty bathtub, naked and confused. Well, as her psychiatrist, help her. But
yeah,
the lines are really blurred here as to whether they were really professionally helping her or just friends of hers. It could go either way.
Yeah.
At one point, although he never clarified exactly when, Anna's bodyguard, Maurice, who was a trained paramedic, noted that Anna Nicole's temperature had gotten to 105, so he told her she needs to go to the hospital. She refused, so Maurice picked her up and put her in a bathtub in the master bathroom. The tub was full of cold water and ice cubes, and they claimed that this helped break her fever. Many people who were there claimed they urged Anna Nicole to go to a hospital, but she was concerned that the paparazzi would find out and it would become a huge headline, so she refused to go. At this point, the suite went into lockdown, refusing to let anyone who wasn't in their party to enter the room. Housekeeping, room service, all hotel employees were only allowed to go as far as the door. No one was allowed inside the room. On February 7th, Dr. Christine told Anna Nicole she had to leave as she had to get back to her private practice in Los Angeles. Anna begged Christine not to go. Not only was Christine Anna's psychiatrist, she was also Anna's friend and next door neighbor when Anna lived in California. Anna Nicole once told a friend that she loved having a psychiatrist that she could talk to every day, quote, just like Marilyn Monroe did.
Yeah, I don't know that that's appropriate.
It's not. It's not. And just when you think we've hit peak inappropriate between this psychiatrist and Anna Nicole, we haven't yet.
Oh, great.
So Dr. Chris, as she was known by Anna Nicole, leaves the bodyguard Maurice, better known as Mo. They have Mo spend the night in room 609, which is the room that was connected to Anna's room 607. Mo said he went out February 8th between 8 and 10 p.m. and that when he returned to the room, Anna Nicole was on the couch in the living room portion of the suite watching television. Mo checked again around 4 a.m. and Anna Nicole had moved to the bedroom. And Mo likes to let people know he was staying in that room out of pure concern for Anna Nicole's well-being because he knew she wasn't feeling well. But what Mo doesn't realize is that a lot of hotels have security cameras, and one in particular caught Mo leading a woman into his suite that night, a woman who wasn't his wife.
Oh, boy.
Howard claims he slept in the bed with Anna on February 8th and that when he woke around 9 a.m., she was weak, but didn't mention any pain. She asked Howard to help her to the bathroom and then went back to bed. Howard would later tell the police he did not give Anna any medication that day and that he did not see her take any medication. Mo came to the room around 9 a.m. to tell Howard that he would be going to have breakfast with his wife, who had arrived. So he would be back shortly. Mo would later tell police that Anna received medication from Howard around that time, like she always did. At 10:45, Mo and his wife Tasma were waiting for their breakfast when his phone rang. It was Howard asking if Mo would go to the airport to pick up King Eric Gibson, a 73-year-old who is going to be the captain of Anna Nicole's new boat. Musical side note. Eric Gibson was a Bohemian musician and entrepreneur. He was known to many by the nickname King. He was considered to be the semi-official ambassador of Bohemian goodwill. After a few years of leading various musical acts, he formed King Eric and his Knights around 1957. The band specialized in modernized style of calypso music, a type of Caribbean folk music that would become known worldwide thanks to singer Harry Belafonte. King Eric and his Knights performed at nightclubs and hotels in the Bahamas, where they grew quite a following. They released at least 10 albums over the next 20 years, although I don't know what happened to the group after that. Nostalgic side note in a side note. Harry Belafonte, of course, is most known for the Banana Boat song, also known as Day-O.
Thank you for that.
I'm just doing my best, which I'm sure we all remember from the infamous dinner party scene in Beetlejuice. Don't say it 2 more times.
Thank you.
So King Eric was known for his musical stylings, but on this trip, he was being brought along for his sailing expertise. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention during all of this, it was decided that Anna Nicole should get a boat? I don't know whose decision it was, but everyone claims it was Anna's, even though Howard was the one in charge of the purchase. The plan was that they would all fly to Florida, they'd buy this boat while they were there, and then just like sail the boat back to the Bahamas. Geographical side note, it is approximately 184 miles or 296 kilometers from Hollywood, Florida to the Bahamas. And since you can take a ferry between the two, sailing about that distance doesn't seem like the crazy idea that I originally thought it was until I saw the distance.
But it does beg the question, why didn't they just fly? Like, is it possible, allegedly, that perhaps if someone was taking medications to extreme amounts, that would potentially cause a scene in an airport or not allow them on a plane? A way to avoid that would be get on a boat. If someone was being kept medicated, beyond the point of where they should be medicated.
Allegedly, I think that's pretty solid.
Thank you very much.
So Mo and his wife Tasma go to pick up King Eric and his common-law wife, 63-year-old Bridget Nevin. While waiting to take an elevator up to the room, Howard came out of the elevator, and Bridget said he was fidgety and strange acting, and that he seemed surprised when he saw them, which is weird since Howard was the one who asked Mo to pick them up in the first place. Howard told the group he had just come down to use his cell phone. Mo then pointed out that cell phones worked just fine in the suite. So Howard went, "Oh, right," and got back on the elevator with them to go upstairs. The 5 of them entered room 607. Looking back, Mo's wife Tasma recalls when they entered the room, Howard was talking in a normal, loud voice, which she felt was strange as Anna was supposedly sleeping. In fact, Howard even shouted, "Anna, we have guests." Tasma said that Howard then, quote, stood in front of the living room area in between the 2 rooms with his back to the master bedroom, so we could barely look into room 607. She also said that it was, quote, like he was intentionally blocking our view of Anna inside the room. The group was only in the room for a few minutes when Howard said he'd made an appointment to pick up the boat at noon. And King Eric, pointed out it was already 12 p.m. So Howard asked Bridget to look after Anna, which didn't sit well with Mo, who then asked his wife Tasma to stay with Anna as well. Tasma was a registered nurse, so it wasn't just a sexist situation.
Right.
So I assume, that was his reason for asking her to stay. So Howard and King Eric rush off to see this boat. And Mo just goes on some sort of errands, leaving the 2 women with an ailing Anna Nicole. Apparently, Anna had purchased the 39-foot 1995 Carver yacht for $129,000 through a wire transfer on January 19th. Anna had already christened the yacht the Cracker, which I guess was her joke on because she's white. Like, I think that's where she was going with that.
Right.
But, oh, sweetie, it didn't land.
No.
But they don't always do. So,
Yeah.
A side note for context, while in the Bahamas, Anna Nicole had met King Eric and Bridget. The couple had a boat, and Anna apparently was quite taken with it and said that she felt very at peace on the boat. Is that what sparked her interest in buying one? Maybe. But the thing for me here is that Anna Nicole started to call King Eric and Bridget daddy and mummy. Because once again, we're talking about a victim who wanted nothing more than to be part of a family. So while it may seem weird that these people showed up when they did, they were relatively close to Anna Nicole and Howard. And a quote was once said about Anna Nicole, quote, "She was attracted to families because she didn't have one," which
again, a parallel to Marilyn as well.
Yeah, the parallels between these women, it's insane.
I also just want to say very quickly,
yeah,
there's no proof that she purchased this via wire transfer. Like, it's said that it was her, but
yes,
my point just is there a photograph of her making the wire transfer? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't know whether I buy that. Do we physically see her making the wire transfer? Because you can call someone.
Sure.
You can call your business manager and make a wire transfer. I mean, I've done that. So it's, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to physically be present. So I just, again, I'm just alleging that,
of course,
perhaps
maybe she didn't do that.
Maybe she didn't buy the boat.
What I like,
or consent,
and people might not like it as much as I do, but I think they will. I like that you're just investigative Lauren immediately is like, okay, you say wire transfer, show me the tapes.
Yeah. Show me the proof. Show me photographic proof.
I like that.
Because a wire transfer, again, I didn't know this until I made one once, which you don't have to go in and do anything. Like, you can make a phone call and do it. So, or send an email and it can be done. Like, my point just is that and I believe that perhaps she did, like boats, etc. But
sure,
again, to me, I'm mostly building a case that is alleging, of course, that there is another reason why this boat was purchased, and that was to try and transfer a woman who was being medicated against her will, allegedly.
Of course. I like it a lot. And my side note, one thing I love, every time you say when you're on the phone, you make the phone gesture.
Yep.
Did you know kids don't understand what that means? Like, kids now,
really?
because they don't use phones like that. So there was some sort of like I can't remember what it was that I saw, some thing on TV where they were asking younger kids, like, what does this hand gesture mean? And they were like, I have no idea. And they were like, what hand gesture do you make when you're on a phone? They're like, well, this, because it's a cell phone. So it's just a straight palm.
Just a flat hand.
Yeah. So
this is like, back in my day where I'm doing a rotary, I'm doing a dial around.
Yeah. My favorite thing in the world. Oh, I don't know. That was a ballsy thing to say, because I've got a lot of them. But one of my favorite things in the world is when you take a young child and you show them like an old phone, or like you show them old technology. Like, there are kids who are like, I don't know, like a VCR, and you ask them what it is, or like a Discman, and you're like, what do you do with that? And they're just like, I have no idea. And it's like, no coat fit a Discman in the pocket. I had a jean jacket when I was a kid that I loved, and the pocket was like a good inch too narrow to fit my Discman. So I had to carry it around like a jerk. Like, come on. Yeah. But also keep in mind, kids, unless you could take multiple CDs with you, you had to make a very specific choice on what you were going to do. And especially before that point, you weren't burning CDs.
No.
Oh my God. Burning a CD. I feel every time I try and explain things to kids, I have to go another step further to explain even more, because I'm elderly.
No,
like this is who I am. I'm going to be the woman at the home that's talking about burning CDs. I'm going to be talking about Big Shiny Tunes too, because we all still are.
Yeah. In Canada, anyway. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I guess did the States not get Big Shiny Tunes? I guess it was a much music.
So. As much music,
yeah. People. What a solid thing. I mean, they had that series of Now That's What I Call Music, which was shortened to just Now, which I remember when it was Now 1.
Yep.
And their well beyond that now. I think I recently saw like 96 or something where
Really?
they're still going. They're still going. They've been making multiple a year forever. But again, that was big shiny tunes. Wow. I love that I just forced myself into my own nostalgia.
I liked it.
So this yacht, which she may have purchased or not.
Thank
we
you.
don't have proof.
Thank you so much.
It was being kept at the Royal Palm Yacht Basin, which was directly south of the Fort Lauderdale Airport, about 6 miles or 9.6 kilometers east of the Hard Rock Hotel. So it was about a 15-minute drive. But the weird thing about this boat appointment, according to Mark, who was the broker in the boat deal, who worked for Real Deal Yachts, Howard called several times during their stay to reschedule the appointment. The original appointment was for Tuesday, but Howard called on Monday to say he needed to postpone because both he and Anna had the stomach flu. On Tuesday, Howard called to postpone again, asking for the appointment to be moved to Thursday. Mark said that while the appointment date changed multiple times, the one thing that never changed was the appointment time, and that was 1 p.m. According to phone records, there were 5 or 6 calls between Mark and Howard on Thursday, and Mark is adamant that they agreed to a 1 o'clock appointment. But if the appointment wasn't until 1 o'clock, why was Howard in such a rush to leave the hotel? Well, back at the hotel, Tasma and Bridget realized that they were not left with a room key, which also they would need to get past security at the elevators. So if the women left, they wouldn't be able to get back in. So despite wanting to grab food, they were kind of stuck in the suite. Shortly after 1 p.m., Bridget entered Anna's bedroom and quietly approached the bed. She noted that Anna was bundled up in a heavy down comforter and that only a few strands of blonde hair were visible. When Bridget pulled back the comforter, she screamed for Tasma to join her. Anna was lying on her right side facing the left wall, and she was naked. Anyone who knew her knew that Anna would never sleep in the nude. In fact, all of Anna's friends have stated that Anna preferred to be covered, especially after several botched plastic surgeries had left one of her nipples deformed. So she never would have been in a state where anyone could have seen her naked, which is sad on its own thing because she was so gorgeous. But, when Tasma and Bridget found Anna Nicole, her lips were pale blue. Tasma called Mo immediately to say Anna has purple splotches on her face and body. She's not breathing and looks blue. Tasma told Mo that Anna was still warm, but she couldn't find a pulse, so she started CPR. Mo said he would call 911, and then he hung up and called Howard instead.
Jesus.
He told Howard that Anna wasn't breathing. When Howard received the call, he was still at the dock with Mark, the boat broker. Mark said that Howard was only said a few words during the call, something to the effect of, "Oh, okay, I'm on my way." Mark said he didn't get the sense that the call was upsetting or an emergency in any way. But Howard said in a monotone voice that he had an emergency and had to leave. Mark said he got the impression it wasn't a major emergency, as Howard was very nonchalant. In fact, after Howard hung up from the call, he then proceeded to ask Mark more questions about the boat before walking to the car. Yes, walking to the car. Mark said that Howard didn't run or rush in any way, and that it was about 10 minutes from the end of the phone call until Howard's car left the parking lot. Mo says that instead of calling 911 himself, he called the hotel instead. He said that his cell phone is registered in Dade County, and that if he called 911, the Dade County Rescue would pick up and not know the address to the hotel. So he called their liaison at the hotel and asked them to call 911. Well, according to the Federal Communications Commission, more than 30% of all 911 calls come from cell phones, and the call is typically answered by a central operator in the city the person is calling from. The operator then redirects you to wherever you say you need help. Mo also claimed not to know the address for the hotel, despite the staff saying he had stayed there at least 6 times before. At 1:38 p.m., Tasma was tired from CPR and was frustrated that help had not yet arrived, so she called the hotel operator and said Anna Nicole was unconscious and needed emergency assistance immediately. At 1:40 p.m., hotel staff called the Seminole Police Dispatch, who in turn called Seminole rescue teams and Hollywood Fire and Rescue. Mo would later tell police he was in the room at the time and instructed his wife to call 911, which wasn't true. Eyewitnesses said that Mo arrived at the hotel and sprinted across the lobby, yelling at the front desk to call 911. According to surveillance cameras, Mo didn't arrive at the room until 1:40, and the 911 call had been placed prior to that, so he could not have instructed his wife to do so. When Mo arrived, he checked for a pulse. He picked up Anna out of the bed and laid her on the floor and started CPR. At 1:44 p.m., police arrived on scene, and at 1:47, 2 fire and rescue teams arrived. One of the rescue teams took over CPR and began advanced cardiac life support protocol, which involved medications such as atropine to jumpstart the heart, Narcan, a reversing agent in case she had overdosed, and then Anna was intubated. At 1:51 p.m., Howard burst into the room screaming, "Anna, without you, I'm nothing."
What? Oh my God.
If Tasma called her husband shortly after 1 p.m., and her husband in turn called Howard shortly after that, why did it take Howard so long to show up? The drive from the yacht to the hotel was about 15 minutes. So why was Howard the last one to arrive? At approximately 2:15 p.m., Anna Nicole was placed on a gurney with Mo running alongside and taken to a waiting ambulance outside. Mo got into the ambulance with the gurney and went to Memorial Regional Hospital. At 2:49 p.m., Anna Nicole was pronounced dead. She was just 39 years old. Questionable side note. I think it's more questionable the fact that I'm choosing to go in, but I'm so deep and addicted to side notes, I will go out of my way to find them.
I like it.
Anna Nicole was the 3rd death that occurred at the Hard Rock Hotel since it opened in 2004. 23-year-old Brian Osario bled to death in January 2007 after wandering into an employees-only area, tripping and cutting his arm. Another man died in 2005 after he fell into traffic during a fist fight near the hotel. A 4th victim was shot in his car in the parking garage at the Hard Rock Hotel in late 2020. And Max Ocelio Jr., the Seminole tribe leader who built the Hard Rock Hotel, died in October 2020 due to complications with COVID. And since we're talking about deaths at hotels, I want to point out a few other celebrities who died at hotels because I live for a side note, especially one that includes a trivia. So I'm calling this one a pop culture trivia side note.
Oh,
the amount of celebrities who died in hotels is numerous. I did not know just how many. So I'm not going to name them all, but just to name a few. Whitney Houston, Janis Joplin, James Gandolfini, John Belushi, Coco Chanel, John Candy, Jimi Hendrix, Corey Monteith, and Michael Hutchence, which I wish I hadn't mentioned because Michael Hutchence's death was particularly traumatic for me because he died, I found out the morning of my birthday. And I was devastated.
Yeah.
And now I hear people quickly Googling to find out when he died, to find out when my birthday is. And congrats, sleuths. I was never shy about when my birthday was, but if you want to go to that level, well, there you go. I can't just tell them now. I have to make them look it up. It's not a secret, but I didn't tell you the year, but
can I also just very quickly circle back?
Yeah,
there's a man who wandered into an employees area in the hotel.
Yeah.
Cut his arm and bled out. Like, I have a couple questions about that. Yeah. One, where was all the employees? How long did he lay there? And if he cut his arm, did his legs not work?
I wish I had more answers for you, but my guess is the employees were not in the employee only area. I don't know.
I guess.
Was he a guest? Did he just wander? Like,
I just feel like if you cut your arm and then you bleed out, like that feels like A, it's got to be a really bad cut, and B, it would take some time, and C, I'm just curious about how he didn't, I've cut myself, help me,
and you shout for somebody, get up and walk somewhere. Yeah. I have a lot of questions. I mean, who knows? If I look into it enough and find out something, here we go.
Update.
Episode something.
Update.
Oh, update. Yeah. I'm gonna write down his name.
Please.
It's already somewhere else. I believe that was that guy. Okay. I'm gonna look into an update and see what I can find on his case, and hopefully there's something.
Yeah.
But again, I'm sitting here and I'm pouting about Michael Hutchins. But this isn't about me. This is about Anna Nicole.
Of course.
Howard was called and asked to come to the hospital, but eyewitnesses said he was in no rush to go. And why wasn't he in a rush? Maybe he had something else to do. Something like call all of his media contacts to ensure that he would book an exclusive deal with certain outlets, like how Entertainment Tonight had a block of rooms booked for them at the Hard Rock Hotel, rooms that were booked for them personally by Howard at some point before 4 p.m. Not to mention, Howard allegedly allowed Entertainment Tonight to fly him to the Bahamas and film his reunion with Danny Lynn just days after Anna Nicole died. But Howard insists he didn't accept any payment for that. A medical examiner named Joshua Perper led the investigation, which also included Seminole police and several independent forensic pathologists and toxicologists into Anna Nicole's death. Perper announced that Anna Nicole had died of combined drug intoxication, with the major component being chloral hydrate. There were a total of 11 different drugs in Anna's system, including Klonopin, Ativan, and Valium. She had also taken Benadryl and Topamax, both of which block sodium channels and intensify the sedative effects of chloral hydrate. The autopsy also mentions that Anna Nicole had an abscess on her butt. So we're back to another episode where Christy starts talking butts.
Thank God.
Apparently, Anna was receiving daily injections of vitamin B12 as well as a human growth hormone, which was being used to help maintain her weight. Again, I want to remind you, she had a baby 5 months prior, and it was a C-section, which is a major surgery. I hate that she felt that she had to lose the weight instantly, and I hate that society has made us that way.
Yeah.
But back to butts. It turns out that whoever was administering these injections wasn't doing so in a sanitary manner, which caused a deep-seated, no pun intended, abscess. The medical examiner believes that bacteria from this infection enters Anna's bloodstream, sending her temperature soaring to 105 degrees, which prompted her and her team to respond with the unintentional overdose of medication. So those injections that were a combination of anti-aging drugs, including human growth hormone, which was meant to help with weight control, caused an infection, which contributed to Anna's death. And from my understanding, the abscess was on her left cheek. And since Anna was right-handed, it's safe to assume she wasn't likely injecting herself. Which brings us to a side note featuring Christy. She's a science nerd. Human growth hormone, or HGH, is produced naturally in the body by the pituitary, a small pea-sized gland at the base of the brain. HGH is critical for normal childhood development. But by the time people reach their 30s, they produce way less, which is said to be part of the aging process. However, we all know the majority of humans fear aging. So in the early 90s, getting HGH injections for the sake of anti-aging started to become a thing. It was estimated in 2004 that 30% of the HGH prescriptions in the US were for the sake of anti-aging, which had not yet been approved by the FDA. At the time, such treatment would cost a minimum of $1,000 per month. And the thing is, doctors have even found that excessive HGH injections can actually reduce one's lifespan. But that doesn't stop people, especially celebrities, from taking it. Celebrities started to call HGH the fountain of youth. Suzanne Summers called it, quote, sex in a capsule.
Oh, boy.
And Nick Nolte called it a, quote, systems repair. Who doesn't trust Nick Nolte?
Well,
in 2007, Sylvester Stallone was charged by the Australian authorities with illegally importing 48 vials of HGH into their country during a promotional trip. Stallone told customs agents he was prescribed HGH to help his aging body get a boost and to look good while filming Rambo 4. Stallone was charged with importing a prohibited substance and fined $2,500. So in the end, Anna Nicole's death was ruled an accidental drug overdose involving 9 different medications, or an acute combined drug intoxication. But even in death, Anna Nicole's legal battles continued. There was initially a dispute over where Anna Nicole should be buried. Howard wanted Anna Nicole buried in the Bahamas, while Anna's mother, Virgie, wanted her buried in Texas. The dispute turned legal and ended with a judge ruling Anna Nicole would be buried in the Bahamas next to her son, Daniel. But the legal troubles didn't end there. Before Anna Nicole could be buried at all, lawyers for Larry Burkhead, Anna's ex, who was claiming to be the father of Anna's daughter, Danny Lynn, were trying to gain DNA samples from Anna Nicole so they could be properly preserved to prevent any chance of a bait and switch by Anna's legal team. DNA samples were acquired, and Anna Nicole was finally buried March 2nd, 2007, in the Bahamas. Her casket was draped in a pink blanket, and she was taken by a white hearse along a red carpet to a small wooden chapel. Her body was dressed in a beaded gown and tiara, while 300 guests at the memorial service wore pink flowers. Each guest was to write a note to Anna, which would be placed inside the casket along with more pink flowers. Also inside the casket were the ashes of Anna Nicole's late husband, J. Howard Marshall II. Country singer Joe Nichols sang 2 songs during the service, including the Dolly Parton song Wings of a Dove, which was said to have been Anna Nicole's favorite song. And shout out to Dolly Parton, just simply because I think she rocks. That's, yeah. As a human, like, I think she's just an amazing human.
Totally.
But let's keep us on the topic of paternity, as I feel like I have teased this long enough. During Anna Nicole's funeral, it was still uncertain as to who was the biological father of her daughter. Howard went on Larry King to say he was the father, but Anna's ex-boyfriend, Larry Burkhead, claimed that he was the child's father. And then, just for added drama, I suppose, several other men came forward claiming that they were the father, because some men are just trash, I guess. One of the men who came forward, and I hope I'm saying this wrong, Prince Frederick von Anhalt, who at the time was married to Zsa Zsa Gabor. In fact, Frederick and Zsa Zsa were married from 1986 until her death in 2016, which brings me to a completely off the rails side note, the length of a tangent. So I have many issues with this Frederick character. First, he calls himself Zsa Zsa's 10th husband, even though Zsa Zsa claims to only have been married 9 times. Which leads me to another quick side note, Zsa Zsa's side note in a side note. So when I said the side note was going to go off the rails, I meant it. And hilariously, I just found out about this little piece of information literally an hour ago. And so I was rushing to write it down so that I could add it because I find it fascinating, not because it's relevant. So just,
great,
great. I have nothing to base on the thought that I was like, you know what? If I find it fascinating, I bet the people would too. What do I have this to base this on? Nothing. So Zsa Zsa Gabor was legally married 9 times in her lifetime. Her second husband was none other than Conrad Hilton Sr., the founding father of the Hilton dynasty. Conrad served in France during World War I and returned to the US and moved to Texas. In Texas, he bought his first hotel. It was so successful, he had to convert the dining rooms into more bedrooms. He started to buy more hotels nationwide, including purchasing the Waldorf Astoria in New York for $3 million in 1949, which is equivalent to like $34.2 million in 2021 money. He married 3 times in his lifetime, his second wife being Zsa Zsa. He had 3 children with his first wife and 1 with Zsa Zsa. When Conrad Sr. died in 1979, he left his 2 surviving sons $500,000 and his daughter $100,000, and then put the rest of his fortune into his own charitable foundation. But also give your daughter the same amount.
Yes.
Prick. Yep, there it is. I'm impressed that he only gave his kids so much and was like, you need to learn charity, whatever. Great. It's the fact that your daughter got, not even half what the sons did. Fuck that. One of Conrad's sons was Conrad Jr., who was Elizabeth Taylor's first husband. She would go on to marry 5 times in her lifetime. It has been alleged that Conrad Jr. had an affair with Zsa Zsa, who was his stepmother for about 5 years there.
Whoa.
And when I say alleged, I mean Zsa Zsa wrote about it in her autobiography.
Hello.
Conrad Jr. had 2 sons, Conrad III and William. He died at the age of 42 from a heart attack. Conrad Jr.'s second son, William Baron Hilton, was one of the founding owners of the American Football League in the 1960s. He married his wife in 1947 and had 8 children. Their 6th son, Richard Hilton, married his high school sweetheart in 1979 and had 4 children, including the infamous Paris Hilton.
Of course.
Was this really fascinating? Probably not. But I live for celebrity gossip, and I love when people can be Kevin Baconed in a case. For example, Paris Hilton's sister, Nikki, dated Kevin Connolly, off and on for years. So because of this information, that means I can now link Turtle from Entourage to Zsa Zsa Gabor. And that, to me, is hilarious. And so it was worth it. But thank you for indulging me on that.
I loved it.
We are going to get back to my side note on Zsa Zsa's 9th husband, Frederick, because the true joke is, we had barely scratched the surface of this very weird tangent that I'm going to take us on. So Frederick is just a real trip of a human. When he was in his early 30s, a friend of his dies. So Frederick consoles the friend's mother and ends up taking her to dinner and accompanying her on trips to places that she didn't want to go to alone. And this woman, who is a princess, I might add, decides she's going to adopt Frederick, even though at this point he was 36 years old. So therefore, he becomes a prince, although technically his title is Royal Highness. So what did Frederick do with this newfound fancy title? Well, he made money off of it, of course. He sold 68 knighthoods for $50,000 a piece. And then he married a woman in exchange for $4 million. Stop. In total, he married and divorced 6 women prior to his marriage to Zsa Zsa. And who were these other women? Well, according to Frederick, quote, just good-looking blonde girls, all of them. Sometimes I had a feeling they wanted to marry me because of the title, so they could become princesses. But as long as I had fun, who cares?
Oh.
After going through 6 divorces, Frederick decides to go to America because he wanted to meet a movie star, any movie star. As luck would have it, Frederick met Zsa Zsa, and after a few years, the pair were kind of an item, but not. So Frederick heads back to his home country of Germany, where he meets a recent Miss Hungary beauty pageant winner named Scylla Molnar. Frederick was 42. Scylla was 17.
Oh, stop.
Frederick described their relationship as, quote, "She was just a beautiful girl, and we ended up at my place. I wasn't married, so what the heck? It was just an affair. And then she went on vacation to Egypt, bought some snake poison, and killed herself."
Oh my God.
That's right, dear listeners. After having a brief affair with Frederick, this poor teenager, I'm going to remind, ended up ingesting poison. News reports claimed that Frederick had gotten her pregnant and refused to marry her.
Oh.
But Frederick denies this, saying, quote, "I didn't talk to her. She didn't understand me. She didn't speak English or German, and I didn't speak Hungarian." Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So how charming of this gentleman. To escape this scandal, Frederick flew back to Los Angeles, where he was reunited with Zsa Zsa, and shortly after the couple was married. Just because he was married doesn't mean he wasn't still desirable to other women. This is a quote from Frederick. "In 20 years with Zsa Zsa, you know how many phone numbers I got under the table? But my wife was smart enough. Every time I went out swimming for an hour, she went through my pockets and threw them all out." Awesome, dude. Or
Wow.
like, it's just that whole, like, I get so much female attention. Ask my wife. Like, fuck off,
Yeah.
man. So gross. And just one more Frederick story, because it's my favorite. Frederick claims he was driving his Rolls Royce near the Bel Air Country Club when a car with 3 young women suddenly passed him and waved at him to stop. One of the girls said they had seen Frederick on TV and that it would make their day to get a photo with him. Frederick said, "Happens all the time." And that he always says yes because he doesn't want people to get mad. And you know what? He loves doing it, especially if they're beautiful girls. And just as the girls crowded in for a photo, Frederick claims they stuck a gun in his neck, told him to take off his platinum Rolex watch, and then get undressed. Frederick did what he was told, and one of the girls used Frederick's belt to tie his hands to the steering wheel of his car. They kicked the door closed and took the key out of the ignition. They stole Frederick's watch, clothes, wallet, driver's license, and car key. He said it took him 5 minutes to get his hands loose before he could call 911. He said it took Bel Air police over 50 minutes to arrive, and when they showed up, they laughed at him. He described his attackers as driving a white car with Florida license plates. Quote, "It looked like some kind of lesbian gang."
Ah, oh boy.
The media had a real field day with it. And of course they did. The guy claims he got out of the restraints to call 911. But then why were his hands tied to the steering wheel when the paparazzi arrived long after he made his 911 call?
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, dear listeners, there is a photo of this poor excuse of a man naked, tied to his steering wheel. You don't see anything, but I'm going to post one. Not because I want to humiliate him, but because he's super gross towards women and the whole robbery doesn't make any sense. Zsa Zsa's daughter from a previous marriage, the one to Hilton of the Hilton hotels. She claimed that Frederick told Zsa Zsa he was robbed by 3 aliens. And Zsa Zsa told him, tell the police it was 3 humans, because otherwise people will think you're crazy.
Jesus. Oh my God.
Yeah. So Zsa Zsa's daughter also claimed that Frederick was only interested in money and attention. And I don't know where she got that idea from. I'm sure every single man with no musical background whatsoever has released a song when they're 62 years old. In Frederick's case, the song was called Viva Viagra, Viva Amor. And the cover featured a shirtless Frederick smoking a cigar. The song was released in 2006, and we're lucky enough that it featured a radio mix, a karaoke mix, and a disco party power mix.
Stop.
It's bizarre at best. I had to find it. If you go on like YouTube, everything is like, oh, you have to pay for it. I found it on Spotify. It maybe gave him like a little tick just so I could watch it or listen to it, but it was worth it because it didn't cost me a dime.
Yeah, that is worth it.
But it's awful. Like, I don't understand what he was thinking. The cover, I'm going to post the cover because the cover is like, oh, okay, you're gross. So in 2002, Zsa Zsa was injured in a car accident, and soon after she would suffer from a stroke. Frederick speaks of the last 14 years of Zsa Zsa's life as one of selfless, all around the clock spousal caregiving, an emotionally depleting journey, unappreciated and misunderstood by all except the 2 nurses that they had on staff.
Yeah, for real.
Frederick said, quote, I gave up nightlife completely. She wants me to put her in a wheelchair, get her out of the wheelchair. It's very tough on me, but I have no choice. She's my wife. I have to take care of her. I have no way out.
Wow.
I hope that was in his vows.
Okay, Romeo.
I know. Viva Viagra, Viva Amor. Mm-hmm. The title is, oh God, it's so bad. Zsa Zsa's daughter also claims that Frederick disconnected the household phone lines and blocked any family and friends from visiting Zsa Zsa in her final years. The creep also lied to Zsa Zsa about his lineage, claiming his family had castles in East Germany. The New York Post once referred to Frederick as, quote, the king of con men. So the dude was gross. Why are we talking about a gross dude? I also I find it wildly fascinating that when he met Zsa Zsa, he was trying to impress her and he was like, well, I'm a prince. My family has castles. And it's like, you're only a prince supposedly because a lonely old princess adopted you.
Yeah.
So settle down. You don't have this massive, impressive royal lineage. So again, why are we talking about this piece of shit? Well, when the paternity of Anna Nicole's daughter was publicly questioned, Frederick decided to toss his hat into the ring, claiming that Danny Lynn was the product of a decade-long affair. Frederick claims his wife had no idea about the affair. So why make such a public claim? Could it have something to do with the fact that at the time of Anna Nicole's death, her legal dispute over her dead husband's estate was still ongoing? And that if Anna Nicole's estate were to win the case, $88 million would go to the daughter? But at the time, when it looked as though Anna Nicole would be awarded nearly $90 million, the men claiming to be the father of her daughter were Howard K. Stern, Larry Burkhead, Prince Frederick von Anhalt, and an ex-boyfriend of Anna Nicole's named Mark Hatton, who claimed he gave Anna Nicole frozen sperm several years before. So who knows what she would have done with it? She doesn't have it, man. On April 10th, 2007, the question was finally answered when a Bahamian judge declared that the results of a DNA test proved the biological father was none other than Larry Burkhead. And how did Howard take the news? Surprisingly well. Howard said, quote, I'm obviously very disappointed, but my feelings towards Danny Lynn have not changed. We're going to do what we can to make sure that the best interests of Danny Lynn are carried out. And I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that Larry gets sole custody. Because in the Bahamas, being the biological father doesn't necessarily grant you sole custody of the child. And at the time, Anna Nicole's mother, Virgie, was seeking full custody of Danny Lynn, despite the fact that Virgie had been estranged from Anna for several years. Although Virgie claims that is because Howard kept her from Anna, not because Anna wanted to be kept away from her. Howard publicly supported Larry, saying he would not fight Larry for custody, but that he would do everything he could to make sure that Virgie has as little to do with Danny Lynn as possible. Howard even taught Larry Danny Lynn's routine and how to feed and change a baby, which again, yeah, this guy's never dealt with a baby. He knows nothing about it, and he's just going to magically learn. I mean, obviously that's how parenting works, but this just feels like a lot. But I mean, he's the father, so congrats. I guess kudos that he pushed for it. It's been said that Howard and Larry stayed in contact for several years so Howard could check up on Danny Lynn. Sole custody was officially granted to Larry Burkhead, and on May 1st, 2007, Danny Lynn Burkhead was finally able to leave the Bahamas and head to her new home in Kentucky with her father, Larry, who was reportedly paid $1.5 million by OK Magazine for the story and photos of America's baby. So the legal dispute over Danny Lynn had come to a close, and she was living with her biological father in the United States. And as I mentioned earlier, the legal dispute over the Marshall estate had also come to an end, with Anna Nicole's estate receiving nothing. And then there's the legal issue with Anna Nicole's own will. On July 30th, 2001, Anna signed a will that was drafted by California attorney Eric Lund and witnessed by Anna Nicole's assistant, Kimberly Walther, and Howard's former law partner, James Cavaranian? I don't know. James something. It doesn't matter, because just 2 days after he witnessed it, he got suspended for lying to a client, and he later got disbarred.
Oh,
so,
boy.
He doesn't matter anymore in our story. But the crazy thing to me is that Anna's will left everything to Daniel. And while that's not so crazy, because at the time Daniel was her only child in 2001, what I find interesting is the fact that the will specifically states it leaves out any future children. So I'm leaving this all to Daniel. If any other children come over, there are no children, stepchildren, biological, no one else
That's
in
weird.
this world. So I find that crazy. It also listed Howard K. Stern as executor, so he was pretty much in charge of what happened with any and all of Anna Nicole's estate, especially since her only heir died. Which there's a lot of things I have to say about that, but we'll get into that, I'm sure. So does that mean it's the end of our story? Nope. Because there's still the legal dispute over the death of Anna Nicole. You see, dear listeners, just weeks before Anna's death, 40-year-old Howard Stern, 40-year-old Dr. Sandeep Kapoor, and 61-year-old Dr. Christine Oroshovich were all charged with 8 felonies, including conspiracy to furnish controlled substances, unlawfully prescribing a controlled substance, excessive prescribing of opiates and sedatives, and obtaining fraudulent prescriptions between June 2004 and January 2007. During court proceedings, the judge inquired about Anna Nicole's mental capacity at the time she signed her will and asked Howard specifics on Anna's drug use. Howard, of course, was deeply insulted, saying, quote, "Your Honor, is this really necessary? It's not right to do this to someone after they've died." They're trying to look out for her best interest, asshat.
Yeah.
Again, I'd like to point out that Howard was the executor of the will, and that the only heir who was set to inherit everything died 5 months before Anna Nicole did. So I can understand why Howard wouldn't want that will to be questioned. Dr. Kapoor was Anna Nicole's internist, and Dr. Oroshovich was Anna's psychiatrist. The two doctors were also charged with obtaining a prescription for opiates by fraud, deceit, or misrepresentation, as well as one count of obtaining a prescription for opiates by giving a false name. It is said that Howard and the two doctors devised a plan to use fake names so that Anna Nicole could be prescribed hundreds and hundreds of pills. Prescriptions were found for Anna Nicole for painkillers such as Demerol, Vicodin, and methadone, as well as anti-anxiety drugs and sedatives like Ambien, Xanax, Valium, and chloral hydrate. In 1 month, Anna was prescribed 1,500 pills.
Jesus.
At the time of her death, there were prescriptions for 44 different medications under at least 9 different aliases, as well as 8 that were prescribed to Howard K. Stern, 1 that was prescribed to Dr. Christine Oroshevich, and another 2 that were prescribed to someone named Alec Katz. It is unclear if Alex is another alias or someone connected to Anna Nicole, but it has been said she was using all of the prescriptions, or that they were all being given to her, whether she realized it or not. It has been said that Anna Nicole would use her stage name when she wanted her Screen Actors Guild insurance to pay for a prescription, and she would use Michelle Chase for her painkiller prescriptions in order to protect her privacy. Other aliases used include Ann Marshall, Susie Wong, Jean Smith, Ann Smith, Ben Stern, and Ben Thompson, who was the man who owned the house where Anna Nicole was staying. And they had that brief issue on whose house it really was. Of all the prescriptions that were written for Anna, 11 were prescribed by Dr. Oroshevich. It has been claimed that more than 600 pills, including 450 muscle relaxants, were missing from prescriptions that were no more than 5 weeks old. According to the medical examiner, the chloral hydrate that had been prescribed to Anna Nicole on January 2nd was almost 2/3 gone, and that 62 tablets of the anti-anxiety drug Valium were missing from a prescription that was less than 2 weeks old. It's also claimed that the doctors had inappropriate relationships with their patient. That was a violation of professional ethics. Dr. Oroshevich, I mentioned before, she was Anna Nicole's neighbor when she lived in California. A pharmacist named Ira Freeman testified on September 15th, 2006, just 5 days after Daniel's death. He said he received a fax from Dr. Oroshevich requesting a prescription for Anna Nicole that could have amounted to pharmaceutical suicide. Ira refused to fill the request and even called Anna's doctor, Dr. Kapoor, to explain why he wouldn't do this. Ira was so concerned about this prescription, he faxed the request to Greg Thompson, the former director of the Drug and Poison Control Center at the University of Southern California. Greg said the dosages were outrageously high and that the methadone dosage alone was roughly 4 times what someone addicted to heroin might be prescribed. And he felt that the prescribing doctor didn't fully understand the medications in question.
Wow.
So it's found that the doctor went to various other pharmacies to get the prescriptions that she wanted, packed them in her bag, and took them with her to the Bahamas. Lawyers for Dr. Oroshevich say that she would never have done anything intentionally to hurt Anna. Anna was a dear friend of hers. She tried her best to help her friend and patient get through a very difficult period of losing a child. And while I truly believe that Anna needed genuine help to get through Daniel's death, because again, as a mother, I can't begin to understand what she must have been going through. But I'm not an expert on professional ethics. I think once you consider someone to be a dear friend, you should no longer have a professional relationship with them. Personal or professional, pick one. I don't feel like you can have both.
Oh, yeah.
So they admit that the care might not have been perfect. They said that although the care might not have been perfect, it was consistently guided by Dr. Oroshevich's desire to help Anna cope with this horrific loss. And that's a nice way of putting it. Stated in court, Dr. Roshevich crossed the personal professional boundary when photos were shown of Dr. Roshevich naked in a bathtub with Anna Nicole. I have not seen these photos, so I don't know if they truly exist, but they're mentioned in a court affidavit, and Dr. Roshevich never denied that they exist.
Jesus.
So maybe. I also didn't want to see them if they existed. I was like, that's, I wouldn't put it past Howard to take them.
Nope.
There it is, Howard. But also Dr. Roshevich's lawyers never said the photos don't exist, nor gave any explanation as to why they might. In court, jurors were shown a video that originally aired on Inside Edition that allegedly showed Dr. Kapoor shirtless in a reclining position with Anna Nicole at a nightclub. It is said his arm was around Anna and he was kissing and nuzzling her neck. Dr. Kapoor's attorney, despite there being video, I might add, declared this was impossible. They couldn't have had any relationship. Dr. Kapoor is gay. He's openly gay. It's impossible. But then put into evidence was Dr. Kapoor's personal journal that he wrote, quote, "I was making out with Anna, my patient, blurring the lines. I give her methadone, Valium. Can she ruin me?" So I'm not saying he wasn't gay, but I'm just saying that you can't just, he's already admitted things happen. So Dr. Kapoor had written numerous prescriptions for opiates and sedatives during his treatment of Anna Nicole. However, there is not one note or any evidence that Dr. Kapoor ever did a single physical exam on Anna at the time that she was his patient. And the Medical Board of California said that in many instances, Dr. Kapoor prescribed more than double the recommended dosage of controlled substances. These included Ambien, Klonopin, Valium, Xanax, Ativan, Methadone. Many were prescribed to her during her pregnancy, despite the fact that many of these narcotics could have resulted in a miscarriage or birth defects. But Dr. Kapoor claimed that Anna depended on these drugs to relieve chronic pain, migraine headaches, depression, and anxiety. The Medical Board of California launched a review to see if him prescribing methadone to Anna in her 8th month of pregnancy was the correct treatment. They decided it was sound and appropriate.
Jesus.
Kapoor's lawyer argued he actually prescribed for her pain. Based on an incident in May 2004, she broke some ribs in a jet ski accident. An expert witness testified the dosage prescribed should have been so much higher. So Dr. Roshevich, Dr. Kapoor, and Howard Stern were all in this court battle. They all pleaded not guilty. Each defendant faced a possible maximum sentence of 4 years in prison if they were convicted of all charges, and they could all lose their professional licenses. So, I mean,
there's just so much. I mean, there's just the first thing that comes to mind very quickly for me is, you don't need to use a fake name. I understand that it's like you're famous or whatever, but I believe that HIPAA laws do protect pharmacists from telling the public what anybody's prescriptions are for. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure there are HIPAA laws that cover that. If we have any pharmacists who are listening, let us know. To me, you use fake names because you're trying to get multiple prescriptions. That's just what it is. And then the other thing I wanted to say very quickly is just, I like that Dr. Kapoor said she needed these drugs to function. She could not function without them. But yet, you told me that on February 8th, I believe, Howard K. Stern said no meds were given to Anna that day. So if we're to believe that she desperately needed these high dosages to survive, just to baseline, and then you just didn't give her meds one day, that could kill her. If you just cold turkey her one day, she's been on high dosages of opioids and methadone and all of the above. Just saying. listen, I'm starting to seethe over here and I need more wine. So let's take one more quick break. We're going to come on back and then wrap up this episode of True Crime and Cocktails. Anna Nicole Smith right here, right now. Let's do it. Welcome back, everybody. All right, we are talking Anna Nicole Smith. Oh, the legal troubles, the doctors who failed her. It's very overwhelming. It's, again, shades of Marilyn. What else do you have for us?
Well, after a 9-week trial, the jury deliberated for 58 hours and in October 2010 convicted Howard and Dr. Aroshevich on conspiracy counts.
No, I didn't know this.
Dr. Kapoor was acquitted of all charges. Howard was convicted of giving false names and acting by fraud to obtain prescriptions. Dr. Aroshevich was convicted of unlawfully prescribing Vicodin by fraud. And just when you think that maybe justice would be served, in 2011, a judge dismissed the convictions against Howard and Dr. Aroshevich, stating that prosecutors failed to show that the two intended to break the law when they used false names to acquire powerful painkillers and sedatives. All charges were cleared for Howard, and Dr. Aroshevich was left with a single conviction for conspiracy that the judge reduced to a misdemeanor. She was fined $100 and sentenced to a year of probation. The judge then stayed the order, claiming the doctor had already completed her probation. So Dr. Aroshevich received no other sentencing. Later in 2011, the Medical Board of California were seeking to revoke Dr. Aroshevich's medical license, alleging that she, quote, engaged in dishonest acts by making false statements in a psychiatric report and billing statement regarding a workers' compensation claim. But of course, there was another case besides Anna Nicole where the good doctor was also being accused of misconduct. In 2012, her medical license was revoked for 90 days, although that was later stayed. Instead, her license was suspended and she was placed on 5 years probation for wrongly prescribing opiates and other misconduct. The medical board also required Dr. Aroshevich to undergo a psychiatric evaluation and to take an ethics course, which hopefully has some sort of mention of, I don't know, never be naked with a patient. How about that?
That feels, you know, that feels like it's one of the early ones.
Yeah.
Allegedly. On the list. Allegedly, sure. Sure.
After a hearing regarding some sort of allegedly shady workers' comp case, in March 2016, Dr. Aroshevich's medical license was fully restored. The Medical Board of California also looked into Dr. Sandeep Kapoor and in October 2019 agreed to revoke his medical license. However, that was immediately stayed and his probation was instead extended for a year. Dr. Kapoor was also ordered to take an ethics course. So the three people who allegedly supplied Anna Nicole with an overwhelming amount of drugs and who all seemed to cross the line when it came to becoming too personal with a client, all escaped any jail time or any real punishment. But I still have a lot of questions about Howard. During the trial, when a judge was questioning Anna Nicole's mental state when she signed her will, and outright asked Howard what drugs Anna Nicole was on, Howard stated, quote, I couldn't be sure of every medication she placed in her body. Well, allegedly, eyewitnesses claim that not only did Howard know what drugs Anna took, but Howard also administered them. Again, I remind everyone listening that this is all speculation, but nannies who worked for Anna Nicole told police that Dr. Aroshevich would visit Anna. The doctor and Howard would allegedly, quote, crush pills, heat them to turn them into a liquid, and inject them into Anna. Anna's bodyguard, Mo, also claimed he allegedly witnessed the same thing on multiple occasions during their stay at the Hard Rock Hotel. The pills would be heated and then injected into Anna, as she wasn't well enough to swallow them. A friend of Anna's named Jackie Hatton also claimed to have allegedly witnessed Howard giving Anna a variety of drugs, Vicodin, Valium, morphine, Demerol, you name it, he had it. A man named Ben claimed that when they were leaving the hospital after Daniel's death, Howard allegedly asked Ben to watch over a duffel bag. Ben said, quote, "I don't understand why the Bahamian police didn't lock down the hospital room, but they didn't, and the bags were free to go." Ben claims that Howard allegedly said, quote, "Don't let them out of your sight. Anna's life is in that bag." Again, we don't know how much truth there is to any of this, and we are just speculating, and not just because Howard is a lawyer. But another employee of Anna Nicole's has said that in the 7 months prior to Anna's death, that Howard had moved into the house and become Anna's confidant. I don't know why she became Anna in that moment, but I put some class into it, I guess. I don't know. Howard allegedly would swear at her, call her horrific names, and push her around. And the nannies who claimed that they witnessed Howard allegedly injecting Anna with drugs, they also claim to have repeatedly overheard Anna telling Howard around the time of Daniel's funeral, quote, "You did this, you killed him, you caused this." Ooh. And that at one point, Anna allegedly screamed, quote, "Get out of here, just wait for the inquest." The inquest, that I'll remind you, was scheduled for October 23rd, but canceled on September 21st because the coroner who was in charge of it had her coroner title removed, and the government abolished the coroner's court, which made it a law to independently investigate any suspicious death. Again, this is all only speculation, and no one has been charged with either Daniel's or Anna Nicole's death. And just an update on Howard K. Stern. As of June 2019, Howard has been working as a public defender for the LA County Public Defender's Office. And while Anna Nicole has been gone for several years, her legacy lives on in pop culture history. There was a TV movie in 2007 called The Anna Nicole Smith Story, starring Willa Ford, as well as a 2013 Lifetime movie, Anna Nicole, in which Anna's husband, J. Howard Marshall II, was played by Martin Landau. And I never thought I would say this, but in February 2011, an opera called Anna Nicole opened at the Royal Opera House. The first act covered Anna Nicole's early years, along with her early career and marriages. The second half is said to have been darker, with the lead actress in a fat suit battling over Marshall's estate and struggling with her relationship with Howard. The opera had mixed reviews. And while the public will tend to only remember Anna Nicole for her oversized breast implants or the fact that she married a man 60 years her senior, she is remembered by those who were close to her as personable, down-to-earth, sweet, and driven. Anna Nicole's idol was Marilyn Monroe, and in the end, both women seemed to suffer from a similar tragic fate. They both died around the same age, after being found naked and unresponsive in bed, and both had a large dose of chloral hydrate in their systems. Chloral hydrate, which is more seen as like an old-timey drug. People don't tend to use it at that point, so it seemed weird that she used it. These two women who each wanted to be famous so that they could be loved by the public because they spent their whole lives waiting to be loved by someone who wanted nothing in return. Two women whose over-the-top blonde public personas were a stark difference from the quiet, intelligent, and lonely women that they were deep down. Reporting for True Crime and Cocktails, I'm Christy Oxborrow.
Amazing. Wow, so much great stuff in here that I had no idea about. I'm just going to just dive right into my notes because I've written some just feverish, frantic notes here.
I love it.
Where am I? First of all, why was she on methadone? This is the thing I kept coming back to. She was not a known heroin user, from what I know.
Nope.
Certainly
no hard
not,
drugs at all.
Right?
Yep. In her system.
So why on earth? And I know that you mentioned, again, in my notes, I know that you mentioned that the one pharmacist who was not having it was like, whoever prescribed this does not understand how this drug works or how you prescribe it. Like they're prescribing too much. So that suggests that it was this psychiatrist.
Sure.
Potentially, allegedly, all of the above.
Yeah.
But that is so sad and wild to me because she was painted in the media as being someone who struggled with drug use issues. She was painted as being somebody but she was, I know for a fact, again, we never know what happens behind closed doors, but based on what we know, she was not a heroin user. And I don't know why you would ever prescribe methadone to somebody who was not coming off of heroin. Like and listen, again, if there's a pharmacist listening and they're like, you're wrong, please reach out and let us know. But my point is there's so many other drugs and there was so many other drugs she was being prescribed that throughout this entire thing was like screaming at me. I'm like, there's something to that specifically that feels like it's a big clue in my opinion. Cause it just doesn't add up.
Like her son also wasn't a heroin user because there were no illegal drugs in his system, and yet methadone was one of the biggest things found in his system.
That's interesting too. That's interesting too. I mean, listen, I'm going to paint a theory in a second.
I like it.
But very quickly, China. I also just wanted to touch on another tragic death. WWE's China.
Yeah.
And really treated poorly also by the McMahons and Triple H and all of the above. That's a whole other thing, which maybe we should cover on this show. Honestly, not that maybe that's maybe a me episode, because I think that her cause of death was probably pretty accurate from what I know, but a terrible, terrible story. Anyway,
if you think I haven't just written down China to remind myself.
Thank you very much. Now, the one thing that I was
wrestling thing.
Oh, well, there's so many wrestlers.
There could be multiple.
I know. And there has been there's a series of A&E documentaries that have come out that are very good. And Spencer and I have been watching them. And there's not a China one, which is a real mystery to me, because she is so iconic and she did so much for women in that genre. I'll just say it because I've had some wines. I think it's bullshit. You're covering all these dudes. And, a lot of their stories are very sad in many ways, etc. But I think she deserves some time, because that's another situation. And again, I know I'm getting off track, but it's another situation where what is the story that is told about her versus what was she doing at the time? And that's what gets so upsetting for me from a patriarchal level. You know what I mean? Because she did a lot and made such a huge impact. And then it's like, people are like, oh, but she overdosed on drugs and she was into, blah, 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 whatever. And it's like, I can't, well, maybe again, what's the reason? Which is what I like that we talk about on this show. What's the reason that she went down that path? Because I bet you it wasn't just from having a hunky-dory life. You know what I mean? I don't know that she turned that way for no reason. But here's the thing. And I Googled this very quickly while you were talking earlier, because I had to double check it. But Zsa Zsa Gabor, also a famous conservatorship case. When I was researching the Britney Spears episode, I remembered when you were talking about it, I was like, I think her terrible husband became her conservator. And he did. He did in 2012 until her death in, I believe, 2016, I believe she died.
I think that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. She, I believe for that duration of that time, her daughter was trying to become conservator, but I believe it was awarded to her husband. There was some study that had come out, report is the better term, that had come out, that she, very sadly, Zsa Zsa Gabor, was bedridden and mostly unresponsive. And whoever was sent to kind of evaluate the situation said that she seemed calm when her husband was around her. And if they moved her to other places or had other people in there, she would get distraught. And so I guess they took that as being what have you. But the judge who granted him conservatorship was none other than a name you're going to remember. Judge Getz. That's right. Reva Getz.
Oh, Judge Getz.
Yes. Who, of course, for those who don't know, if you haven't listened to the Britney Spears episode of our show, what are you doing? Get back there last week. But she, of course, was the first judge in the Britney Spears case, I believe.
Oof.
Don't kill me if I've messed that up. When we do these episodes, we record them and then they flush from our brains. So if I've
the ring light goes out and it just deletes.
goes.
That's our delete button.
But I'm pretty sure she was the first judge. I'm right? In the Britney case?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure I'm right. Anyway,
she was the one that pissed us off the most.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure I'm right then. But anyway, long story short, too late. So I was very excited to share that with you because you went on that great side note. And then I had a side note about the side note. But
side note.
Thank you very much.
I like it.
Two things. I have one last thing to say, and then I'm going to give you a theory. But the one thing I want to say is that I know that I referenced watching her reality show earlier. And I referenced also at the time, because some said that at the time, perhaps she was on prescription drugs and stuff like that. So there's controversy about, were we watching someone struggle, et cetera. That's what I was referring to earlier. And I don't know if I verbalized that well, especially for maybe our younger listeners who don't have a reference to what that reality show was. So I wanted to clarify that very quickly. But what I want to say also was that the reason I think I loved Anna Nicole Smith was at that time, she was a curvier lady. She was maybe, but also let's calm down. She was probably a size 16, maybe size 18, maybe curvier lady. Which is also why it's so sad that when she years prior was being called fat, she was a smaller size, which again, I'm sure that was very difficult, as I think most people can relate to. Somebody calling you fat constantly, and then you've potentially maybe put on some weight. I don't know what that may have done to someone in the public eye, et cetera. But I love that this person was in the public eye. And this was a period of time. And we touched on this briefly in the Britney Spears episode too. This was pre-body positivity movement. This was like, if you're not thin, you're unhealthy, which we now know is a fallacy and a terrible narrative, a toxic narrative. And so I loved that she was on TV and that she was this kind of fun, quirky, bubbly, eccentric kind of person. I loved it. And I loved that it was like, it never seemed, at the time, I never took away that it was about her weight. It never felt like that to me. Now, perhaps I'm remembering this through rose-colored glasses. Again, please don't come for me if I'm incorrect. But when she came through with her trim spa weight loss and she was so thin, et cetera, I do remember feeling so sad because I just thought Anna Nicole was so cool. I thought it was so cool that it was like at a time where we didn't see a lot of that representation. I thought it was really cool that she was this beautiful, again, quirky weirdo. And I say weirdo in the way that I would refer to myself as a weirdo. I thought she was great.
Yes.
And so that's again why for me she held such a place in my heart, and I think I had such a soft spot for her, was that I thought that she was doing something, much like I'm talking about China, she was doing something at the time that wasn't really happening, which is a cool thing. Now, all right, getting into the theories. I'm alleging it feels to me like there was just, I mean, first of all, also Danny Lynn looks spitting image of Larry Burkhead. Like when she became toddler age, it was just like, guys, come on. Like, and I think listen, Howard K. Stern, I believe, knew that he was not the father. I don't think that he thought he was the father. And so I think that may have been part of why he kind of took it well, because he probably knew, and he knew he was lying, maybe even just, but like, you look at that kid and you're like, that's not your kid, dude. Like, you have to know she's a spitting image of this other man. Yeah. Just like without question. But it's interesting to me that she had been dating Larry Burkhead. She had kept that relationship a secret through, who knows? Was that her choice? Was she being advised that way by Howard? Who knows? Then they moved to the Bahamas. Then we know, again, there's the stuff about Daniel feeling uneasy about Howard, perhaps being scared of him. And then Daniel goes to visit and dies immediately in a hospital. This is the one detail that I cannot let go of. They were in a hospital. So for somebody to die in a hospital feels extreme, right? It's like, even if he's not the person who's, ailing in the hospital, it just feels, I just can't let go. That's another thing I can't let go of in this case, is that it's like, how does that happen? I am alleging that it perhaps seems that Daniel and Anna Nicole were very close. Daniel, as you've revealed, I did not know this detail before. He had potentially been hiring a private investigator. He was trying to get his mother potentially away from Howard. It feels to me if the facts that we know, and this is not alleging, we know for a fact, and we can say this without having to worry about getting sued, because we know for a fact that Howard K. Stern, her psychiatrist who has the long last name, and Dr. Kapoor, Dr. Kapoor, again, got off or whatever, but we know that there was a lot of pills being ordered and prescribed and filled under names by these people. We know that that's a fact because there's court documents. So we know that that's true. So these people had access to all of these drugs for her, etc.
Yeah.
It feels to me, again, I'm just speculating. It feels to me plausible, possible. Maybe Daniel was pushed out of the way by given a drug overdose, and then Anna Nicole perhaps was, of course, wildly distraught, but was she so distraught that she needed to be sedated, or was she being sedated so that she didn't speak the truth? Because she was basically sedated from the time of Daniel's death until her death, right? She was basically being kept deeply drugged. So, you know, these are people who were also putting her on methadone when she was pregnant, when she was also a woman who did not have a history of heroin use. I just feel like I don't know what motive you would have to keep someone drugged like that doesn't involve keeping big secrets. What motive do you have to keep her on those drugs? And if they're boiling pills and injecting them, again, I know that that's speculation, but that's pretty extreme. And to me, again, you know, even if, let's just say, here's another theory very quickly, Daniel's death was accidental, but it still would have been because he had access to pills that he wasn't being prescribed. Even if he took them willingly, recreationally, and I'm not saying that he did, but again, just as another theory, it still was not, you know, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like he still had access to them illegally because of them. So it's just odd to me. Again, I don't know what motive they had to keep her drugged to that level, sedated to that level. I don't know what motive there would be other than to keep her from talking, right?
Yeah. And I mean, at that point, they still didn't know. They still thought it was possible she was going to get like $90 million from that estate.
Right.
And then once I think that's why, I mean, I agree. I don't think he ever thought he was the father.
I don't think so.
Especially when she was allegedly with Larry Burkhead until May of 2006. And then in June, she turned around and announced, oh yeah, by the way, I'm like 5-6 months pregnant. And also, how did you not notice? You know, like, I think, and I wonder, like, if she had just been left to like, oh, by the way, Larry, we're having a baby, would they have just gone on with their lives and like had more children and, you know, been together? Did Howard find out that she was pregnant and say, that's not going to work, we need to get you somewhere where, you know, we can assume it's mine, we can tell people it's mine, and then we don't have to worry about him coming after you. And if he does come after you in the Bahamas, he wouldn't necessarily get, you know, any custody of the child. But
it does feel interesting to me.
Why would he want her away from the child's father? Why does that matter? You know, was it you see him as a threat to taking her for the rest of her life? I don't know.
But I agree with you. It's an interest. Again, the timing is interesting. Like she's pregnant, and then all of a sudden they move to Bahamas, where, great point, they happen to have this kind of loose custody law, which I don't know, a lawyer might know about. I don't know. And also, you know, it just feels to me like, yeah. And then we know that she was being prescribed these heavy sedatives and medications while she was pregnant. So it's hard to know. Obviously, we'll sadly never know, I'm sure, but it's hard to know what her mindset was at that time. Was she making these choices, or were these choices being thrust upon her? Was she being sedated to some level and kind of, again, it's like I said about the boat. I'm like, Do I believe that she was like, I want to buy that boat and that's what I'm going to do with my money? I don't know that I buy that, but I also don't necessarily buy that she wrote that will.
I'm also have the question of, I mean, I guess this is probably a question for lawyers, but he's her executor. And he commented that, well, he'd get a fee for being the executor. And it's like, do all executors get like a percentage of whatever from the estate for the job of being the executor? I thought the executor just did it and was like, okay.
I think it depends. I don't think that you automatically get a fee, because I'm sure there are situations where people have executors and they don't have money to pay them. So like, I don't think that it's like automatic.
Yeah, I just find it weird, everything about the will, her specifically stating like, never, like, any children that come into my life after this are never getting anything. It was no children, no spouses, nobody in the future. Just
And what's
Daniel.
interesting, what is interesting to me about that is it affirms, like, Howard K. Stern and her having the commitment ceremony, which is not a legal marriage, right?
Right.
Because I was like, why would he do that? What is his, if we're painting him in a nefarious light, which again is a speculation, what does he gain by having this commitment ceremony? Because you would think, well, he married her because then he'll get whatever. Right. But when you look at that will, it's like, oh, well, he wouldn't get anything if he was a spouse. So I guess it kind of makes sense that he would then play whatever this game is potentially and have a commitment ceremony that's not legally binding, possibly. Right. Because again, it doesn't, but this brings us back to one of my original points that I brought up early in this episode, which is, again, I'm fascinated at her relationship with Marshall. I'm fascinated about what that really was. And I feel like there was something I had read once where she talked about how they were really good friends and legitimately she really valued their companionship and spending the time together that they did. And that was it a traditional marriage? Probably not. But her whole thing is that we spent a lot of time together. He asked her to marry him many times. She said no many times. And eventually she said, okay, once she was on her own 2 feet, which was important to her, which does make it hard for me, it makes it hard for me to believe that she was just in it for the money. I do have a hard time believing that. And I am not saying that means that they were wildly romantically in love either, but I don't know that I think that she had completely bad intentions with him. I think she was potentially a lost soul a little bit, like you touched on. I think she was looking for, as we know, calling new friends mommy and daddy or whatever it was, calling him pawpaw. Like, it feels like she was looking for things potentially in not traditional places. But it begs a question. And I know that this is, a bigger conversation. I know we have to wrap it up, but it begs a question that it's like everyone's relationship is different and we don't know what goes behind closed doors for any relationship.
Sure.
And if they had this legitimate companionship and they had this and it was or wasn't sexual, who is to say that is more or less of a marriage than anything else, than someone else's relationship? You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like, do I feel that she was entitled to some of that money? I kind of do, to be honest with you. He married her, as far as we know, when he was in sound mind. He had proposed to her, as far as we know, multiple times. You don't have to like his choice. You don't have to respect her choice. But at the end of the day, it's like, we don't have to like or understand or respect anybody's marriages, right?
Yeah. It's true. I agree. I feel like it was probably more companionship than anything else, because if we learned anything about Mr. Marshall, he didn't want to be alone. He always needed somebody there. And specifically a beautiful woman is what it seemed. And that's what he wants. Sure. And for her, I think she just wants somebody older than her that she can just feel that like parental, like somebody's taking care of me And so that's probably why initially she was like, you know what, fine. We're good friends. I will officially marry you because then I can be taken care of if need be. And then it turned out that it didn't happen. And I just can't believe the amount of people that died related to this story. Like, there's just so many things. I also did not know that her son died in the hospital with her. I didn't realize that he died within hours of being there. Like, I had no idea how soon that all happened. And I find all of everything with her son very sketchy. Of what's going on there. I have so many questions that I'm just not going to get the answers to, you know?
Very sadly. Yeah. Well, listen, you took us on a ride. You gave us so much great information. Again, I always considered myself to be an Anna Nicole Smith expert, and you told me so many things I did not know. So, Christy Oxborrow, as always, knocking it out of the park. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you for letting me talk about Zsa Zsa as long as I did.
I not only let you talk about Zsa Zsa, but I added on to it. So clearly it was embraced by me. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of True Crime and Cocktails. If you haven't already, give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at True Crime and Cocktails, Twitter at Not Detectives. Again, you can find out all about Patreon, patreon.com/True Crime and Cocktails. And our official merch store, the only place to buy True Crime and Cocktails merch, is truecrewmerch.com. Now, do you want to tell everyone about next week's episode? Because I know it's one that's very near and dear to you.
I don't know if I'm ready, but yeah, I can do it. It's going to be a really interesting record. On the next True Crime and Cocktails, Kurt Cobain.
We've been getting so many requests for this one. And listen, this is one that I have read a lot of books about. So I am ready to go. Going to be polarizing. Maybe not polarizing. I feel like a lot of people are on the same page about this one, actually. But I cannot wait. I cannot wait to find out what you find out about the whole thing. Christy, do you want to say goodnight to the people?
Good night, people.
Good night, everybody.